Want to be happy? Build a life, not just a business. Hey, it's Carmichael, and this channel was created to help you overcome the #1 challenge that is holding you back, a lack of belief in yourself. You watch these videos because you know you've got so much more inside you. You've got Michael Jordan level genius at something. So today, let's live your best belief life and get some incredible motivation from the one and only Shetty. Enjoy.
You can't plan your life 30 years ahead. You don't need to. And I think that's a pressure that we put on ourselves, like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, what am I gonna be doing when I'm 50? And it's like, well, actually, hopefully you'll be doing something that surprises you. And why not just let your life surprise you constantly? Why make it out like life is this like linear perfect journey where like at 30, I'm gonna do this, and at 40, I'm gonna do this, and at 50, and it's like, well, life probably is not gonna go like that. And that picture that you have rolling, because it won't fit in with what you're experiencing, that gap is the pressure that you feel in your life. The reason I'm saying don't put purpose on a pedestal is because then purpose becomes this heavy weight that you're carrying, and you're now like judging yourself that you don't know it. And if you instead make your goal to learn about purpose, learn about meaning, explore yourself, experiment, grow, now it becomes like, oh, I'm just experimenting, I'm just learning about myself. If you don't really have an interest, it's going to be really hard. And then when it comes to our soft skills, we go, oh, I'm a good communicator, I'm just gonna stick to that, forget vulnerability. Or I'm a really good talker, forget listening. And that kind of all comes in together. And I think the point is that if we're always learning and figuring out a way to serve in whatever situation we're in, that's the best route for success, because that's something that no one can take away from you. We like stress out about not being motivated. We stress out about not finding purpose, but guess what? Just like you gotta eat and shower, you have to find purpose in every day. I think that we have to get as intimate with our dark side as possible. And I feel like when you don't get that intimacy, you don't really understand it. I look back and I think, why did I do that? And it's just always been my desire to experiment, always been my desire to learn, always been my desire to be curious and find out more about myself. The first is to approach any situation from compassion and empathy. The other thing is to recognize that sometimes when we go through pain, it makes us pay attention. Like when we go through pain, it makes us pay attention. When things are going great, we often get complacent. We stop worrying, we get lazy, we don't worry about anything, we're just relaxing. And as soon as you feel pain, pain is a way of your body, of society, of the economy to force you to pay attention. So if you're being lazy and not eating right, your body reacts badly to tell you to stop doing that. So any pain that happens in your life, first of all, is saving you from more pain. And so for me, that's the shift that we have to go through. And that all comes from us deeply looking into our minds and going, where are these blocks turning up from? Where are they coming from? What are their roots? And then how can I replace them with the right conversation, the right dialogue internally. When it comes to your hard skills, focus on your strengths. When it comes to your soft skills, focus on your weaknesses. If you do those two things, your life will change dramatically. Because if you're good at something, you'll become exceptional at it. Life is challenging. It's full of ups and downs. We think, I wish things could just be still. I wish things would stop changing. I wish my problems would go away. We want a life that's steady, with a path that's flat. Yet as Deborah Evans once said, life is like an EKG. Without the ups and downs, you're not living. Because this is what a flat line looks like. And this is what a lifeline looks like. When we feel those highest highs, those extreme peaks, we're ecstatic to be on the summit. Then when we're in the lowest lows, those deep values, we're ready to submit. And so we try and play it safe and avoid all risks. But when we seek security and prioritize passiveness, we don't realize that a flat lifeline means we're dead. If we're always trying to live our lives at sea level, then we'll never see what life is truly about. That what we judge as good and bad are in fact deeply connected. How could we ever experience how wonderful happiness is if we never felt sadness? How could we taste the triumph of success if we never failed? How could we know the comfort of gratitude if we never experienced loss? Somehow we got the idea that being successful and moving forward in life means we're constantly moving up. But have you ever read a book, watched a movie, or seen a case study like that? They don't exist. Every story worth telling has peaks and valleys, successes and setbacks. Our brains are wired for novelty. When something's new, whether it's a fantastic surprise or a huge challenge, our brains light up. We thrive on learning and our opportunities to grow. Yet our brains also easily become accustomed to patterns, making it harder for us to change. Dramatic disruptions help us break these patterns and invite us to see and experience the world in a whole new way. And as it turns out, we're designed for change, all the way down to our cells. Your body is constantly being reinvented, replacing most of itself every 7 to 15 years, even down to our bones. The universe is constantly shifting, and we are part of that. When we try and resist change, it goes against our very nature. In the journey of life, we experience pleasure and pain. There'll be sunshine and rain, there'll be loss and gain, but we must learn to keep moving forward again and again. So if you opened your eyes this morning, if you were healthy enough to move about, to maybe get yourself some food, if you were able to go to a refrigerator and find that it was full and stocked, if you were able to put on some clothes, and if you had a roof over your head, just remember how grateful you can be for all those things we consider to be basic, but for others, they don't even have access to. We can't stop life's ups and downs, but we can change how we experience them. We can learn to go with life's flow. Because as Helen Keller once said, life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all. Harvard did a research study on 3,000 leaders, managers, individuals working inside organizations, and they looked at the top performing ones and they wondered and asked, what was the number one skill they had? And it came down to this one word: associating. The ability to connect dots where people usually see differences. The ability to find parallels and similarities and synergies where other people only see divide and disconnection. We live in these echo chambers inside our organizations. We get lost around the same group of 3 to 4 people. We get lost in the same mini groups of people, and we don't expand our minds beyond that. People with broader networks, people who had people in their lives that were very different from the other people, were actually able to provide more creative, more productive, more effective ideas and solutions in the company, because they were able to look at things from multiple angles, different perspectives. How can we start to recognize that when we win and someone else wins, when we win together, when we're able to help and serve and support each other together, that so much more can happen? There's a wonderful verse in the Manusmriti, which I talk about in Think Like a Monk. It's a monk book. And in the verse it says, when you protect your purpose protects you. Now, I want to unpack that. What I mean by that is, your purpose is like a rare jewel and a rare gemstone. And imagine you were walking around with the most expensive diamond or jewel in the world. How would you protect it?
You want to just like
wave
it out, yeah.
Yeah, you want to just wear it on your chest.
Like this.
Like a baby.
Holding it.
Yeah.
Putting a pillow around it, a blanket, you'd protect it.
You'd protect it. And so your purpose is like that. And guess what? Wow. People are going to tell you every day that that jewel is not worth anything. They're going to tell you that that jewel is actually valueless. It doesn't have any impact on your life. They're going to try and take away that value. They're going to tell you that there's another jewel out there that you need to have more value. And what ends up happening is I love the word, look at the wording, protect your purpose. You have to protect it. So what happens is your success grows, you get more opportunities, more ideas, more things coming your way, temptations, but they can all take you away from your purpose. Yeah. Distractions. And to me, I'm repeating this for myself because I'm like, I just want to stick to what I was born to do. And I'm so grateful that I get to do it. I'm so happy I get to do it. And I want to keep protecting it. I don't want to get lost in the waves. You know, you don't want to just get chucked in the waves of the ocean and just get lost and just not know where you're going. So for me, when you protect your purpose protects you.
So that's been your biggest lesson?
That's my biggest lesson.
Why? Do you feel like your purpose has been maybe distracted in some ways?
I don't think it has, but I'm saying it so it doesn't. Like
You're reminding yourself.
Yeah, I'm reminding myself. Like I'm preaching to myself right now. It's
especially
like,
being in Hollywood and the temptation of all these opportunities out here.
Totally, and I think for me it's a bigger lesson also because it gives me more faith. So I always encourage, and this is actually this is why it's my biggest lesson. I encourage so many people that I coach, so many people that I mentor, obviously everyone in my community and audience and everything, to go and follow that, go and live that purpose. And I see time and time again that when I see people trying to live their purpose, they are protected, that things work. When you're playing in your dharma and your purpose, things work, things move, you feel momentum. They happen. And I'm not saying they happen without effort, but they happen, they move. Whereas when you're not, you just constantly feel like you're grinding up against, you know, a war. I never believed I was an entrepreneur, and I never thought I wanted to be one. Because in my heart of hearts, I'm an artist first. In my heart of hearts, I'm a content creator, I'm a thinker, I'm a visionary, I'm an artist. That's who I really identify with being. But what I realized very quickly was, if you just wanted to be that, and you were gonna wait to find people to spot your talent, teach you everything about business, and make every decision for you, it was never gonna happen. And I think a lot of artists are waiting to be found and discovered and managed and molded, and that their agent's gonna change their life. And I'm like, that doesn't work like that.
You have to do the work yourself.
You have to do the work yourself.
Yeah.
And so...
That's very well said, by the way, for someone that actually is in the position helping people and doing that. A lot of people think they don't have to do the work, but you 100% have to do the work yourself.
Well, yeah, and I just meet so many people, and I love my manager, I love my agents, I've got a great team of people around me, but they are able to do more for me when I do more for myself.
So well said.
And I find that so many people, and me included, at one point, I was waiting. I thought, someone's gonna find me, and then they're gonna like change my career and change my life. And guess what? That didn't happen.
Yeah.
And I realized that I had to invent, and I had to create, and I had to push. So becoming an entrepreneur for me was learning, because I was like, I don't want to be left behind, and I don't want to be the person that doesn't reach my potential, which means I'm going to have to learn skills I never thought. Now, funny story, when I was 16 and I was hanging out in the wrong circles, I used to import jackets from China and sell them at school and all of this kind of stuff. So I was like, I had
a hustler. You were a hustler.
I had that in me, but I forgot that. And this is what happens, that when you go to school and university and family, you forget what your natural dial was. So for me, I started reading books. I started spending time with people who were successful in the area I wanted to learn.
Sure.
I went and shadowed people. I got mentored by people.
Did you intern at all?
I didn't intern afterwards, but I interned a lot when I was at college and university. But then since then, like in the last few years, I think it's mainly been picking up the phone to people, getting to know people. And this is what I've realized. If you're putting out content and people can see you, they're more likely to pick up the phone and connect. And I had this experience where I went out to someone and they didn't realize I recognized them. So I got invited on this podcast in New York, and it was an influencer from LinkedIn. And he didn't know I knew him because he found me a different way and booked me through someone else. But when he met me, I was like, dude, I know you. I see your content on LinkedIn.
Right.
And he was shocked that I even knew who he was. But I was like, I've seen you. I see how you tell stories. And I think you're going to grow and become an incredible LinkedIn thinker one day.
Yeah.
But I see it now, and I'm like, I was more likely. Whereas if that was someone I'd never heard of, I probably wouldn't have gone on.
Yeah.
And so I feel like when you're putting out content, when you're creating and sharing what your perspective is, you're more likely to attract the right energy around you, rather than when you're waiting for someone to just discover you.
What was the thing that made you choose to actually commit on such a deeper level?
I think it was that when I was doing the 2 lives, I got to see what life looked like at both ends.
Yeah.
So I got to see what like a cool life, working in the city, wearing a posh suit to work every day, driving a fast car, having a beautiful girlfriend at the time, like all that kind of stuff. I got to see what that felt like.
Yeah.
And then I got to see what it felt like living as a monk in India. And it's so weird to say it. And this is why I believe that more people should have what I call immersive experiences. Like when you think you want to be an entrepreneur, that's different. Go and work with an entrepreneur for a week and then think if you like the process, not the result, right? Like don't look at the chains and the car and the home. look at whether you like what time that person wakes up. Like we're in the gym every week together.
Yep.
Right? At the same time every week.
We're committed.
We're committed.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're here today. We're in your space in your studio. Like you're committed. And I think because I'd done that for 4 years, actually making the decision was easy because I already knew what I was getting myself into.
Yep.
It's kind of like dating versus marriage.
Yep.
It's like if you've never dated, you don't know you want to spend the rest of your life with someone.
Yeah.
And so I had dated for the last 4 years with both these lives.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, I prefer this one. That's literally it. Now, I'm not telling you to cheat on people and date 2 people at a time. The analogy applies to this. But the point being that if you go and experience life, decision making becomes easy. If you're trying to do it all with theory in your head of like, crap, do I become a monk or do I become a finance person? Like you'd never figure that out.
Yeah.
But when you go live it and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I felt happier doing that.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. I felt happier. I felt I was going to have a bigger impact on the world because we were not just meditating all day. We were building food distribution programs, charity, philanthropy programs. Like we were doing work in the world to help people.
Yeah.
And that's where I got most activated. Like I'll tell you what, actually, this is it. This is the true answer. The reason why I decided to become a monk was I wanted to study everything about philosophy and life.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be able to live it for real.
Yeah.
And so I was addicted to learning about wisdom.
Yeah.
And the second thing was, I was like, I want to use my life to have a meaning and impact in the world. Yeah. And at that point in time, I'd not seen people do that through business.
Yeah.
I'd not seen people do it through entrepreneurship and success.
Yeah.
I'd only seen people do it in that way.
Yeah.
And so now that's different. I believe you can have an impact through business, etc.
Yeah.
But at that time, I'd not seen that.
Yeah.
How many of you get to the afternoon and start to feel tired, lethargic, fatigued? You want to take a nap, but then you look at your to-do list and you realize you still have 77 things left to do. The first and easiest thing we can do is hydrate. I know it doesn't sound like rocket science and it isn't one of those clever hacks, but it can make a huge difference. Alkaline water specifically has a much bigger impact on your energy levels as well, so I try to stick to that. Chances are when you're feeling tired, you're going to want to reach for something with fats and carbs. I know when I get tired, I want to reach for some chocolate, some donuts, maybe a bagel, but that's not really what your body needs. What you need is a high protein snack. And so you want to turn towards something like fruits, nuts, seeds, anything that you actually may not want at that moment. You may not want to taste it, but I promise you, you'll feel much better for it. Now, if you're a tea lover, you already know the benefits of a hot cup of tea. But if you're not, I want to let you know that certain teas have herbs and adaptogens that help your body get back up to balance. So if you're feeling stress, they'll de-stress you. If you're feeling anxiety, they can lower that down. And on top of that, the art of taking a cup of tea, inhaling the scent, feeling it in your body, and then looking at the color gives you that sense of pause that you need in the day and re-energizes you immediately. I recently did a test to check my vitamins, and I realized that I was really deficient in vitamin D. The doctor explained to me that because of the color of my skin, no matter how much time I spend in the sun, I need to be taking vitamin D. Now, she was actually shocked that I could even get out of bed. That's how much vitamin D is connected to our energy levels. So if you're starting to feel fatigued a bit earlier than usual, get a vitamin D check and start taking some vitamin D. Learn from the past, but don't live there. This is actually a picture of Don Shula, a famous NFL coach, if you like NFL, one of the most well-respected NFL coaches, and he had this great theory. Well, not theory, practice. He gave all his players 24 hours only to celebrate a success or cry over a loss. He said, you've got 24 hours to feel your emotions. 24 hours to be successful, champion it, have a celebration, whatever you want to do. You've only got 24 hours. Make the most of that 24 hours. And if you're going to cry, I'm giving you 24 hours. After that, we forget about it. And the reason why I love this statement is this statement, learn from the past but don't live there, is usually used as saying our past is negative. But I want to apply it to the positive as well. Often we sit back and with nostalgia reflect on our best memories, right? And this nostalgic thing makes us still live in the past, and it doesn't necessarily let us build for the future. One of my favorite examples of it is when Steve Jobs went back to Apple. He went in there, and the first thing he did is that he crushed the museum that they'd built of all the history Apple had, because he said he didn't want to be working for a company that was built on just all of this past recognition and success. He wanted to be building a company of the future. He got rid of this big museum they had in the entrance of Apple when he went back after losing his job the first time. And so this is what I'm talking about. Let's not live in the past, right? Let's learn from the past, but not live there. And they did some great studies with armies. They did it with the US Army, and they did this with the Israel Defense Forces. And I'm sure you do this at work. So they did after-action reviews. But I'd love for you to do this in your own life. So they found that when they had two groups of soldiers, one group of soldiers reflected on only the failures of all of their actions, and the other group reflected on the failures and their successes. They found, after doing this for a certain amount of time, they found that the soldiers that focused on both the failures and successes not only performed better in future tasks, they were better mentally situated to actually inspire and empower their colleagues as well. So when you're reflecting, don't just learn from the past by learning from the failures, learn from the successes as well. Build them into that, because we start developing a story and a pattern for life. We will continue to create the life that we currently have with the current set of thoughts, wisdom, beliefs, and ideas that we have. And if we're happy on that path, if you could fast forward your life in 10, 20, 30 years' time, and you'd be satisfied with getting the life that you have right now, then that's great. But if, like the majority of people that I know and that I speak to and that I connect with online, the majority of us would look and go, no, I really want to change life. I want to be with my kids, but I want to change how I am with them. I want to be at work, but I want to be more present at work. I want to improve the quality of my life. Then I'd say that it's so important that we learn and open up our minds to alternative thoughts. I'll give you an example. There was this great study that MIT did on people's minds' openness and their ability to be creative and innovative. And they looked at two types of people. One person was surrounded by people who all knew the same people, right? Kind of like our normal lives. And the other person was surrounded by lots of people who didn't know each other. And they did the study around who is more creative, more innovative, and has a bigger impact in the workplace, in their professional life, and then a little bit into their personal life as well. And what they found was that those people who knew each other, who knew them back, lived in what was known as echo chambers. They were rarely exposed to ideas that improved their way of living or their professional performance. But people who were exposed to ideas that had no connection with other people in their life were able to be more creative, have better ideas, have more purpose, have more meaning in life. So often we've become closed in our little spaces around what we hear, what we know about, and we're not exposed to this new sense of ideas. And that's what I would encourage, is just approach it with a tiny bit of curiosity. That's all you need. The next step is creating accountability. The reason why we procrastinate is because we're left to our own devices. If I don't feel like doing it, I don't have to do it. I can procrastinate, I can overthink, I can get distracted. When I really want to work on something, I find an accountability partner. I've had to do it with my health for a long, long time. I don't enjoy working out, you've heard me say that before, but I want to be fit, I want to be healthy, and I want to be alert, and I know that exercise is a big part of making that possible. I found an accountability partner in my tennis coach. She always shows up on time, and she'll make sure I get there if I get one of those excuses like, oh, I'm feeling tired today, or I'm a bit sore today. She'll make sure that I'm there playing tennis no matter what. Knowing that someone else is already out there when it's cold, when it's raining, when it's hot, when they're tired, allows you to push yourself out of your comfort zone. When you really need to work on something and improve something, you often have to do it when you don't feel like doing it. When you don't feel like doing something, it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, because that's when you have to connect with the feeling after. We get so obsessed about how we feel before something, when the feeling after is that much more important. Before you eat healthy food, you might not be attracted to it. After you eat healthy food, you feel good about yourself. But if you see that burger, or you see those fries, or you see that chocolate fudge cake, it feels good before, but then afterwards, you usually regret it. Words that we should use more of in our life are words that give us the right feeling we want to feel. So I'll give you an example. Instead of saying, now I work super hard, I do get tired, and I do get exhausted sometimes. I'm very aware of it and I'm cautious of it. And I realized that for a long time, I just kept repeating, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I'm exhausted. And I'd say it to my wife, I'd say it to my team.
I'm overwhelmed. Stressed.
Yeah, and I still do it sometimes. So it's not that I'm perfect, but you're making me aware of it. And I say that, and I started to realize that, okay, it didn't make me feel better by saying it. And actually what I was trying to do was get validation from someone else to be like, I know how hard you work and you're amazing and blah, 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 blah. And so, you're really doing it for a reaction.
Yes.
And then I started to realize, well, I am tired, but why don't I just say, I'm going to make some time to nap today. I need to find some time today to rest. I need to make sure that I, get some time to myself today. Like when you flip it, not by just saying, oh, I feel amazing because I don't feel amazing. Again, you don't want to lie to yourself, but you're trying to create words that help you actually get what you need. So me saying I'm tired, really what I need to be saying is, I need to get some more rest today. I better sleep early. And when you go, to Radhi, you know what? I think I'm going to sleep early tonight. That's perfect because now I'll sleep early and I'll get the rest and I won't be tired. Yes. If I go, hey Radhi, I'm so tired, it just creates this negative pattern of complaining and whining and creating that in ourselves.
What?
We know that we have around 60 to 80,000 thoughts per day. The most incredible thing is these thoughts are cycling. They're not only repetitive, but they're also negative. I realized that knowing which are the most repetitive and negative thoughts allows you to spot their trigger. Do you experience this when you're on social media? Do you experience this when you're watching a particular show or you're around certain people? What we want to do is find that trigger, trace that trigger back to its root, and reduce that activity in our life. Often what we think is causing us anxiety is different from the root of where it started. It was Wayne Dyer who said, when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. Let's look at our thoughts differently. Stop thinking that you are your thoughts and that your thoughts are all you are. Recognizing that we're so much more beyond our thoughts allows us to disconnect and distance from them and then upgrade them towards healthier thoughts. Don't make procrastination the enemy. We think procrastination's bad, it's useless, it's not going to help us, it shows that we're fearful or insecure. But procrastination can often be the greatest space for creativity. Allowing yourself to doodle, allowing yourself to free think, to free write, to freestyle is so important. Now, I can't draw the best, I'm not the best sketcher, but I love putting pen to paper and just allowing my mind to flow through my hand. Allowing myself to discover new ideas, new shapes, new thoughts, new names. Some of my best inventions and ideas have come from just allowing myself to procrastinate and to overthink. Sunny Brown, in her book called The Doodle Revolution, talks about how some of the greatest minds in the world doodled and allowed themselves to discover new ideas. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. All right? So if you find in your life, when you reflect about this question, that you're going through the same challenges regularly, remember, a challenge will never go away until you learn what you're meant to learn from it. So if you're seeing the same challenge coming up again and again in your personal lives, realize that it's trying to teach you something. As soon as you extrapolate that lesson, you'll get on to the next challenge, right? They don't go away, but you go up a level, you go up to the next level. So notice that as well. Remember, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. One of my first things in failure is don't take it more personally than it actually is. And I'll give an example of that. When I was applying to 40 companies that all rejected me before an interview, all I was getting was an automated response saying your application will not go any further. I can't take that personally because they didn't meet me in person. They didn't have a interaction with me. They just saw my name. They saw I'd been a monk for 3 years. That resume is useless. I mean, what's your transferable skills? Like sitting in silence and stillness. Surprise, surprise, no one wants to hire a monk. And so they rejected you, but that's not personal because they didn't meet me in person.
But what if they had meeting you in person?
Right, so that's the first step. The first step is don't take all failure. I'll give you an example. Me and you, we reach out to countless guests to be on our podcast.
Mm-hmm. Who say no all the time.
Who say no all the time. But if I don't hear a no from the guest directly, that's not a no. Like someone's team can say no, someone's assistant can say no, someone's PR team can say no, but until they say no personally, it's not a no.
Okay, but when they do say no,
then that's a no. Yeah, so then let's move to that.
So how do you deal with that type of failure?
Yes, so if I deal with a failure where someone meets me in person and gets to know me.
No, Jay, you're horrible, you suck, like I don't want to deal with a monk ever in my life. I would never go on your show, I'm never listening to you. Never.
Yeah.
Then how do you deal with that type of
So
failure?
I've heard you say this. I've said it a couple of times, and I'm sure it's been repeated a bunch of times around how I genuinely believe failure has feedback.
It's feedback,
And
yeah.
and so for me, it's like failure has the ability to actually tell you what you need to improve. Now, not to improve to get their attention, improving to get the actions that you want to take.
Yeah, the results you want.
The results
yeah.
you want. And
Yeah.
don't make that result about the person who said no. Don't try use failure as a way to prove someone else wrong.
Because what happens when we prove others wrong?
When you prove others wrong, you end up trying to get validation and approval for them. And now if they're not impressed when you're right, you lose again. So you end up losing twice.
And you spend all this time and energy, years maybe, to prove someone wrong. I've been there many times.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I felt good for a moment.
Yeah.
And then I feel empty again.
Totally. And so that's the thing about failure in the second half is you have to see failure as an improvement. If I'm completely honest, everyone who rejected me in my life up until now has made me more hungry, taught me so much more about myself, and made me up my game.
Yeah.
And I think if failure doesn't make you up your game, it's the same as losing in a sport, right? When you fail and you've lost games and you've won games, you know, on the big stages.
You didn't have the skills, you didn't have the teamwork, you guys weren't hungry enough,
You weren't
whatever it is.
communicating enough.
There's something you were missing.
Yeah.
So you go review the game film, you check the stats, you see what could I have done better, and you try to improve that for the next game.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people can do that in life, but we're so afraid to like go on the next game of life. Like I got rejected once and it hurts so bad.
Yeah.
How do people learn to overcome that pain of rejection?
Yeah.
To keep going.
Yeah.
You know, in sports, luckily there's a season, which is like you might have 30 basketball games. After you lose the first two, you don't say, I'm just going to give up the rest of the season.
Yeah.
You keep playing.
Yes.
But in life, a lot of people stop playing.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. I think that's great mental training too. I think
Yeah.
sports is great mental training because you have to show up to the next game even if you lost and you don't feel bad.
Exactly.
That you don't feel good, sorry. And one of the things, before I dive into that question, one of the things that you reminded me of was the Last Dance documentary. So there's that season that Michael Jordan, everyone is in agreement that he is one of the best players to be playing. And they keep losing.
And they didn't make the finals.
Right? They didn't make the finals. They lost. And then they realized they need to get the team. And they need to find, I think they're bringing Dennis Rodman. And then they start bringing in all these other players that strengthen. Whereas if they would have just said, we got the best player in the world, we just keep doing this, I'm not sure they would have got there, right? But the coach, Phil Jackson, and the team, they had to adapt. And so you're saying, why do we feel that pain in rejection and how do we deal with that? I think we feel that pain because we look at a failure, right? We look at it as a complete definition of us, right? We're looking at it as there's that famous statement of like, you know, failure is an event, not a person.
Right.
And I don't know who said it, but it's one of those statements that really clicks. Like failure is an event, not a person. Whereas we start thinking we are the failure. Like we say, I am a failure. Exactly. If you had 100 hours to invest in your self-development, in what you were good at, what you were average at, and what you were bad at, how would you split that time? When this question was asked to 200 of the most healthy, wealthy, wise people in the world, what they found is that their percentages were 100-0-0 or 80-10-10. And the reason for this was very simple. When we focus on things we're naturally good at and we invest in them, we become exceptional at them. When we focus on things that we're average at, we may get good at them. And when we focus on things we're naturally bad at, we may become average at them. The hard skills that we have, the actual hard, tangible skills that we have, we should focus on our strengths. But when it comes to our qualities or emotional intelligence, we should focus on our weaknesses. So if you have a challenge with something like listening, you don't go, oh yeah, Jay told me not to focus on my weaknesses, so I'm not gonna bother getting better at my listening, right? Listening is a soft skill. If you have a weakness in a soft skill, you want to give that your energy. But if you have a strength and a hard skill, you want to give that your energy and focus. And usually we do it the other way around. If we're bad listeners but good at something else, we let it roll. We say, oh, that's okay, that's not a big deal. But when it comes to things like empathy, emotional intelligence, vulnerability, listening, communication, connection, these are things that we can improve in. And when it comes to our natural strengths, our skills, our hard skills, we can play to those as well. And when we play to our strengths, when we understand our role and our offering, and we recognize that actually that person has their offering, we recognize It's not that we disagree with each other. It's not that that person's trying to take me down. It's just that we speak different languages. We generally talk to people like they're exactly the same. And people generally talk to us like we're exactly the same. We usually expect that people will respond to things in the same way as we will. We just have this lens. Until we start recognizing that there are different wirings for different people, so they all respond to different things. And there's a beautiful statement that's often attributed to Albert Einstein where he said that everyone's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will spend its whole life believing that it's stupid. And so many of us in our own life are either trying to be something or we're connecting with people differently. All of us can mindfully approach any conversation in the workplace, with a partner, potentially even with a patient or wherever it is, understanding that person's language. The point being that everyone was trying to achieve the same goal. And I want you to do that. I want you to give yourself the benefit of the doubt and the people around you that everyone is trying to work towards the same goal. If we can just learn to speak each other's language, then we'll be able to improve our communication. Where do our challenges arise? And our challenges arise by how we see ourselves. And what I believe Rangan's referring to is there's this quote that I begin my book with and that I've shared in interviews for the last few years. And it's from a writer named Charles Horton Cooley, who wrote this in the 1900s. And what he said is that, I think it's in the 1800s, at the end of the 1800s, towards the 1900s. And he said, and bear with me, and you've got to really listen closely to this. So what he said that the challenge today is, I'm not what I think I am. I'm not what you think I am. I am what I think you think I am. Now, just let that blow your mind for a moment. I will explain it, I promise. I'm not what I think I am. I'm not what you think I am. I am what I think you think I am, which means we live in a perception of ourselves. So I'll break it down. If I think Rangan thinks I'm smart, I'll say I feel smart. But if I think Rangan thinks I'm not smart, then I'll say I'm not smart. And so the challenge is that we're basing how we feel about ourselves on what we think someone thinks of us. And the greatest challenge with that is, how do you have any idea if what you think someone thinks about you is even true and whether that's even the best place to start? So that's where our identity struggles. We start pursuing things in life because we think other people value them. It's almost like, let's think of the most playground version of this. If I remember wearing high-tech shoes from BHS to the playground, right? I remember my mom, because my parents didn't buy me Nike trainers or Adidas trainers, which I always wanted. You know, we didn't come from that background. I couldn't afford them, and my parents didn't want me to have them. So I'd walk in with my high-tech trainers from BHS. They were about 10 quid or whatever they were. and you know, to me, it didn't make a difference. I didn't really know at that time whether high-tech was good or bad. They were just trainers that my parents bought me. Now, everyone, the cool kid at school, had the latest Nike trainers. All of a sudden, I start thinking that he's now surrounded by everyone. Everyone's talking about his trainers. Everyone's giving him adoration. Everyone's giving him respect. Everyone's talking about his trainers. So now I think that if I want to have that same experience and love from people, that I need to get that. Not realizing that I may be able to get deeper love from people by being kind and compassionate. That I may actually be able to build a real relationship with people if I'm loving and considerate and empathetic. And it's so crazy how your life can become about pursuing something. And that's why Jim Carrey puts it best, and I'm paraphrasing. He says, you know, everyone in the world should achieve everything they've ever wanted and accomplish everything they've ever pursued just to realize that it's not the point. Now, that doesn't mean the monk mindset is not about not pursuing your goals. It's actually about pursuing your truest goals, your truest self, and your most authentic, aligned goals. So it's not about not having goals. It's about making sure that your goals are actually yours. You can't be logical and creative at the same time. Your brain and mind is using different faculties and different abilities to do different types of tasks. Imagine you're in meetings all day about numbers and data and analytics, and all of a sudden you're asked to do something creative, maybe write a speech or give a presentation. it can be really, really difficult to switch from one side of your brain to the other side in a matter of seconds. With very little organizing and planning, we're literally going like a pendulum, swinging from one task to another, which is requiring different parts of our brain and the abilities that we have. The way I solve this is that I start every day by first writing down my to-do list. I look at all the activities that I have to do. Now, in the examples I give in this video, I've simplified my task to make it easier, but know that I do this with a lot more detail. You want to draw a line down the middle of the page. On one side of it, write logical, and on the other side of it, write creative. You now want to plot and mark where these tasks on your to-do list fit, either in the logical category or in the creative category. The question you're asking yourself is this task largely structured, focused? Does it have certain boundaries? Is it quite a logical step-by-step process? Or is this creative? Is it more of a brainstorm? Is it somewhere where you need to feel free and expressive? After you've divided these tasks, you now want to write down the time estimate that specific task is going to take. What ends up happening is you start to plot your week by saying Mondays are going to be creative, Tuesdays are logical, Wednesdays are logical, Thursdays are creative, and Fridays are creative. Or you may also divide your day up into logical mornings and creative afternoons, or creative mornings and logical afternoons. This division, this time blocking, allows you to get really immersed into the activity, really focus, and be more productive. One of my favorite ways to start is looking at what we value. And values are a very intangible word, and so there's a very easy way to figure out what you value. There's two things you have to look at. You look at how you spend your money, the most painful thing you can possibly do. Go through your bank statement and look at where your money is being spent. That is what you value. The other thing that we spend, just like we spend money, is how we spend our time. Those are the two most perfect ways to see what you currently value. Your value isn't what's in your head, isn't what's in your heart, it isn't what's in your mind. It's how you spend your money and how you spend your time. And so, just to give you an overview, and I share this in the book, that research was done on how we spend our time. And the research showed that we spend 33 years in bed, right? 33 years of our life in bed. And 7 years of that is spent trying to sleep, not even sleeping, right? We spend 1 year and 4 months exercising across our whole lives. These are, by the way. We spend more than 3 years on vacation. And we spend a bunch of days trying to get ready, and we spend a bunch of time, standing in lines and queues. And so much of our time just gets spent. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, where am I currently spending my time? And where do I want to spend it? Now, studies also show that everyone has to go to work, so this isn't about what you do for work. People who had more meaningful, purposeful lives and were healthier, wealthier, and wise invested their time in education over entertainment. And Rangan, your audience is lucky because they get education and entertainment in one place. But that's the goal, right? Like, that's the goal, that you're creating an opportunity for people to find education. The smartest, the wealthiest, the most healthiest, the wisest people in the world were reading books, watching documentaries, taking courses, listening to podcasts, learning to better themselves. And so that's the first place to start. The second place, when we look at that value audit, is I want you to write down 3 things that you're currently pursuing in life. It might be a promotion, it might be a new home, whatever it is that you are currently pursuing. And then I want you to ask this question. Is that your desire and your dream, or is it coming from something outside of you? Is it coming from a pressure of a family member? Is it coming from an expectation because your friend just bought something? Where is that desire truly coming from? And the third and final question you want to ask yourself is, do I still want to pursue that? Or do I want to change how I pursue it? Or do I not want to pursue it at all? And if you go through that 3-step questioning process, you'll get to the truth of what you truly want to pursue and stop yourselves from building a sandcastle which the waves of time will eventually wash away. And so that's what we get lost doing. We get lost building castles that we don't even want to live in. Here's a way that you can actually get more out of the same time. I learned this from my good friend Ariana Huffington, who speaks about habit stacking. Now, we all have habits in our life that we do every single day without even thinking about it. We're driving around town. We're cooking every single day. We may be on a walk. These are great times to immerse in those activities for sure. When you're driving, to be fully present. If you're going on a hike, to be really there within nature. And if you're cooking, to be really present with the scents, the sounds, and all of the different colors that may be there. But if you're someone who can do some of those things pretty comfortably, you can also add a stack of a habit. So for example, you may be someone who listens to an audiobook while driving. You may be someone that listens to a podcast while cooking or while you're on a hike or walking the dog. It's okay to habit stack in those scenarios to get more out of the same amount of time. I wrote about this in my book. It's called Location Has Energy, Time Has Memory. When you do something in the same place every day, at the same time every day, that space builds an energy and that time builds a memory. What does that mean? When you've done something in one place, like meditated in the same place for a considerable amount of time, that space takes on a meditative energy and frequency. It becomes easier to do that activity in that place. And similarly, when you do something at the same time every day, that time has a memory. Your body, your mind remember that, and therefore it becomes easier to do. Divide your home, even in corners. I remember when my wife and I lived in a 500 square foot apartment, and literally every corner of that room was divided into a meditation corner, a social corner, a work corner, and an eating corner. Even that differentiation allowed you to keep the energy of that space sacred and appropriate for what you want to do. The challenge today is we eat where we're meant to sleep. We sleep where we're meant to work, and we work where we're meant to eat. So we've confused the energy of our environment. That's why we're sitting in bed and can't sleep, because we do so many different activities there. Remove that energy from the bedroom, place it where it needs to be, and allow yourself to see how you use your time more effectively. Whenever you give out any energy, love, hate, anger, kindness, you will always get it back, one way or another. Love is like a circle. Whatever love you give out, it always comes back to you. I was just showing Sally a Facebook memory backstage 7 years ago. I love Facebook reminders.
Look at this.
It showed me that I was speaking to this little group of students about 7 mistakes people make in their 20s. And it was a memory of a talk that I was giving 6 and 7 years ago. I released my first video 5 years ago. So 6 and 7 years ago, most people didn't know who I was and what I was doing. I had an event in London called Conscious Living. So it was on a Friday night in the city, and 5 to 10 people would show up every week. That's it, 5 to 10 people. And I remember loving it, and I remember feeling so happy and so grateful that 5 to 10 people showed up. And I feel the same way about the first 5 to 10 people that followed me and commented on my videos. And I feel the same way about the first 5 to 10 people when I finally got to meet them. And I found that if you can love one person, if you can deeply feel grateful for one person, then thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions will come from that. But if you struggle to be present and connected to that one person, it's really hard to be trusted by the universe with more. What is it that success looks like for you? And don't make it about a number. Don't make it about a count of views. Don't make it about a follower. Don't make it about a size of home, because those things are great for success, but they're not great for happiness. My measure of success is, can I wake up and do something I love every day? I think we've come to a place where we feel that freedom and the freedom of unlimited choice is power. And we've all realized, and the science and the studies all show this, that the more choice we have, the worse mistakes we make. And we make poorer decisions based on this complete limitless choice. And I found that actually when you stripped away some of that choice, your ability to make decisions grew.
My meditation teacher said to me, even in a shallow dive, you get wet, so still do it.
Beautiful. I love that. Yeah. The first step is learning to appreciate where you are. Because if we can't appreciate where we are, we will never appreciate where we get to. And I often say to people, like, you're exactly where you need to be. And we're scared of accepting that because we're like, well, I don't like being here, but that's because we don't see it as part of our story. And then the third part of it truly is that I've seen the most powerful dreams be linked to service and impact. And so when your dream expands into having a service element, you get the opportunity to work harder than you've ever dreamed of. You're able to learn things that you never believed you could because we're so phenomenal at extending ourselves beyond what we know for people that we love and people we want to serve. You want to make sure that in any habit change there is some reward, and a reward is making sure you recognize what amazing growth you're making. That you're taking a moment to see, look how far I've come. Because our mind again tricks us and always goes, look how far you have to go. It's really important that you remind yourself of how far you've come, how much you've grown, the difference you've made. With this principle, it was actually a study by Amy Wrzniewski and her team at the Yale School of Management. They wanted to go and research what they believed was the most difficult job in the world: hospital cleaners. And this was pre-pandemic. These were people who had to clean up the hospital rooms, hospital beds, hospital toilets after people ate and even after people passed away. You can only imagine what a challenging and difficult job it is. They went and interviewed some hospital cleaners. Some of them described themselves as cleaners. They described the activities that I just stated and described themselves as doing that kind of labor. Now, another group of hospital cleaners, they described themselves as healers, servers, carers, transformers. They did the same exact work as the other cleaners in the same hospitals, but they saw themselves as directly connected towards the healing journey of the patient and the patient's family. They saw their work, that if they could make an environment clean, that would be better for the patient and the patient's family. They saw it as a way of serving someone's journey towards healing. This mindset, which Amy Wrzniewski and her team called job crafting, is where you look at your work differently. So many of us get caught up on that Excel spreadsheet. We get caught up on that PowerPoint presentation. We get caught up on doing the actual task, but we forget to look up. Look beyond our laptops, look beyond our screens, zoom out, and think about the impact that our work actually has on others. Your work may be allowing you to put food on the table and take care of your family. It may be helping your children go to a specific school. It may be helping them have certain opportunities. When you look up from the task and you focus on what your work truly allows you and the people you love to do, you start looking far beyond than just that activity. Think about that today, zoom out, and that reduces the anxiety. It reduces the stress that is attached to the day-to-day task and allows you to look at it from a bird's eye view. I think actions that we should be adding more of in our life are actions that create positive habits. I think it has to be habits orientated. It has to be stuff that we can repeat. And in Think Like a Monk, I talk about the 4 key habits in your day, which are thankfulness, inspiration, meditation, and exercise, which is the acronym of TIME. So make more time in your day for thankfulness, inspiration, meditation, and exercise. Those are 4 actions that I think if everyone wants to take in their day, this is what happens. When you're thankful, you boost your immunity, you boost your self-confidence, you boost your mood.
Yeah.
Because you go, oh, people love me. That means I matter. People care about me. That means I have something to care about. So it boosts your mood. And then when you tell people that you're thankful, you now boost connection and relationship. And when you thank someone, you now boost the feeling of, I have people in my life that care about me and I care about them. So much comes out of that one action. Inspiration or insight, listening to a podcast, reading a book, reading a quote. When you do that, again, you feel excited, you feel enthused, you feel like you're learning, you feel like your mind actually works and that they can go somewhere. So that's a great action. Meditation, of course, we've talked about at length in the beginning. And exercise. people just don't understand that we could solve so many of our challenges simply by sleep and exercise and diet. Like those 3 things
Change your life.
could change your life. And we have to just get focused on one at a time. And so in actions, I talk about this thing in principle is we want things to be small steps, but big priorities. So if you want to change an action in your life, it needs to be a big priority, and then you need to break it down into small steps. What we try and do is we try and change everything at the same time.
I think one of the biggest mistakes I've made, and I think we make as humans, is we often look for divinity in humanity. You're looking for that divine person that has all the answers and that is infallible and perfect. And when you seek divinity in humanity, you're left with insecurity and anxiety because no one fulfills that divine search. And so for me, what I really had to understand as I went down that road and felt like I was let down and felt like people made me feel unworthy or unequipped was I recognized that there were 4 pillars of relationships. And they are care, competence, consistency, and character. Every single person in your life is going to be able to give you, or should be able to give you, at least one of these 4 characteristics. Very rarely, if ever, will one person give you all 4. And if you're lucky, you might have a few people in your life that give you 2 or 3. So let's talk about each of them. Care. My mom. There is no one in the world who cares for me more than my mom. She would do anything for me. She'd be there for me. All she wants to make sure, doesn't matter what I've achieved or what I've done. If she picks up the phone to me, her first question is, have you eaten? What did you eat? Are you safe? Are you healthy? Right? Like that's all she cares about. Now, my mom isn't the person that I go to for business advice, or she's not the person, I'm saying hypothetically, that I go to for social media advice. That's not her competence, but she doesn't need to be. She cares for me, and that's what I get from her. Now, let's go to competence. If I'm thinking about starting a business, new dragon over here, right? Like you'd be a great friend to call up. You're someone who understands what it takes to get investors, scale a business, build teams, manage internationally, grow, scale, sell. Like you have that journey and you have that network, you have that career.
I'd also care about you.
I know you also care about me. So I've got 2 out of 4 in you. And you got good character. You don't have the consistency though, because we don't see each other enough. So 3 out of 4.
75%.
Yeah, 75%. And so for me is that perfect example of there's competence there and there is care there, which is wonderful. And there's character there. I believe you're someone of good character. And that's the next one, character. There are some people in our life that hold us to higher values. They help us grow with greater integrity. They help us see things beyond what we're chasing. They make us look beyond our desires and make us recognize that there's so much more to life. And those people are massively important. And those people may not be the people we see every week. They may not be the people we see every day. They may not be the people that we call up, but you need them as your compass. The people with character are your compass. And then finally, you have the people that are consistent. You have some mates that you just know are always going to pick up the phone. You know that if you need to move house, you've got a family emergency, you know which friend you call. They may not be the competent business advisor. They may care about you, but they don't care about you as deeply as your mom does, but they are consistently always there for you. And that's beautiful. But the problem is when we look at our consistent friend, we think, well, why are you not competent? And we look at our competent friend, we think, why don't you have good character? We look at our character friend and say, well, why aren't you always there? And so we're always looking for which C they don't have, rather than appreciating for them for exactly what they bring to our life.
On a mental level, what's self-awareness? Knowing what type of people I like to be with. Knowing who helps me grow and who drains me. That's mental self-awareness. So self-awareness at every level, and then we go into the spiritual consciousness level. That's disconnecting from all these identities and understanding the identity that we are wired for generosity and we're wired to serve. And only in service can we be happy. And that's us on a consciousness level. That's the identity of consciousness. Like water is wet, the sun is heating and light. Consciousness is service. Like that's how it fits.
Why are we wired for that?
We're wired for that because all of us as consciousness have been designed, and we see it since like even kids, like I was giving this example of this beautiful, and you may have seen it, it went viral on Instagram. It was this little girl, probably about 2 years old, watching a cartoon, and she takes a handkerchief and the cartoon character's crying, and she goes up to the television and she tries to wipe it off, right? And it's incredible because this girl's 2 years old and she thinks this cartoon character animal is crying, and she gets a real tissue and tries to wipe it on the TV. Obviously it doesn't work. And there's another one that I saw with this statue of this rabbit, and there's like 4 rabbits and one rabbit's like falling off the end, and this little boy is trying to push the rabbit up, but it's a stone rabbit, it's just a statue, but he's trying to help it back up. So we see, and there was a great article in Wired about this, about how we're wired for generosity. Our brain is happier in service. This whole world is almost a school, an education system to make us realize that one truth. And we see that when we're serving, when we're doing that, we feel genuine happiness. But when we're trying to gain and greed and power and strength, we even feel empty as it slips through our fingers. So the why is because that allows us to connect to our deepest self, the happiest self that we have. And modern studies have shown that. So Michael Norton at Cambridge University, he did a study where they gave people $5, $10, $20 to spend on themselves. Have you seen this?
Go ahead though.
Yeah, and then they spent $5, $10, $20 on others. So people spent $5, $10, $20 on makeup, Starbucks, and normal stuff, right? That was the three makeup, Starbucks, and then something else, I can't remember. And then people who spent on other people, they also bought the same stuff. Starbucks was still in there, and they're buying all this stuff. What they found is that when people self-assess their happiness before and after, without knowing about this A/B test, people who spent the money on themselves didn't feel any happier or any less happier. But the people that spent on others felt 10 to 20% happier. And then he went and tried this out. This was a college in the United States. They then went and did it in Africa, they did it all over the world, and the stats and the pattern showed the same. Wow. That we're wired for generosity, we're wired to serve, to make us realize that that's our real nature, that's our greatest self-awareness.
I'd say that in my heart and my intention, I've only wanted to do good for others and serve others and support others. So even when I started creating content, or even when I worked in the city, or when I became a monk, my intention was always to serve and to help others. My intention was never motivated by big results or anything that's happened in my life today. I never thought it would happen. And I never even believed that was the goal or that was the reason I was doing it. The reason I was doing it was I believed that I uncovered this incredible wisdom and I wanted to share it. That was it. And so I think sometimes our intention gets dirty or messy. Sometimes really our intention is ego-driven, or sometimes it's money-driven, or sometimes it's results-driven. And none of those things are bad. You can have money, you can be famous, you can be successful. But if that is your reason for doing it, if that is your intention for doing it, it won't satisfy you even if you get there. And actually, if you do it for a deeper reason, you'll probably get there faster and you'll be happier when you actually receive it. And so one thing for me is, and I work on this every day, it's not that I've mastered it, but every day I'm working on my intention to always be of service, to always want to help. I was really fortunate to meet incredible people when I was young. I met a few people that absolutely transformed my life. I'm eternally indebted to them, grateful to them, and I owe it all to them. And so I give all my success to them. You know, without meeting those amazing mentors and those phenomenal thought leaders and thinkers who are not famous, who are not known, who are not present, like they're not in the social media world, they're not big names or whatever. Those people, if I never met them, none of this would have happened. And
I can see the emotion in your face when you say this.
Yeah, I really, we skipped it earlier, but I just feel like the gratitude that I have for people who saw potential in me when I didn't see it in myself, that is just the greatest gift you can give to someone. Like, I today have self-awareness and I have confidence and I know who I am, and I wasn't always like that. Like, there were tons of years where I was insecure and, I was bullied for being overweight, and I was bullied for being the only Indian at school. And there was so much like baggage to do with just my body, how language I used and all this kind of stuff. And to to have someone notice that you may have something. I mean, you've had that, and that is just, you like honor that person for the rest of your life. And the best thing is those people don't even want it. So, you know, the best thing about all of this is the people there are not going, oh yeah, we did that. They're actually saying, no, it's not us, like it's you. And I think that's the beauty of that. So I have to say that it's important that I share that answer, not because I'm trying to give a more strategic answer, but I think it's important because it is a big part of it. And so that would be the monks that I met, it would be the coaches that I met, the guides that I met. Looking at it from a very practical, strategic standpoint, shifting now, my parents forced me to go to public speaking and drama school when I was 11 years old. And I really didn't want to go because I was shy, I was unconfident, I was insecure about being on stage or being in a public setting. I actually loved acting growing up. I really enjoyed acting and doing theater and things like that, where I was playing another character. But being myself on stage, that was the last thing I wanted to do. And my parents saw that, and they saw that as something that I should work on. So they forced me and my school to enroll me in a public speaking course. So from the age of 11 through to the age of 18, for 3 hours a day, 3 days a week, so 9 hours a week, for 7 years, I went to public speaking school.
Really?
For 7 years of my life, I went to public speaking school.
Wow.
So when I look back at my ability to communicate, my ability to understand ideas, and by the way, public speaking school is examination based too. So we had exams where they would give you a topic 15 minutes before. You have 15 minutes to research a topic from the books in the room that they give you, because there was no smartphone at the time when we were 11, 12 years old. And you'd have to create a speech in 15 minutes about that subject from the books that were in the room. You had to read from a book that you'd never read before. They'd pick a random page and they'd ask you to read it out. So the examination of a public, and this was at the London Academy of Music, Drama and Arts. It's called LAMDA. And that's where I studied for 7 years. So that's a very strategic skill set that I had the time to develop thanks to my parents. You know, like without my parents, none of that would have ever happened. And I think that's a big part of why people hopefully appreciate how I communicate ideas, because I've spent a lot of time understanding communication. But when I was 18, I had nothing to talk about. So even though I had all these tools and skills, I didn't really use them because I didn't care about anything. So sure, I gave a good presentation at university and work experience and an internship, but it was never something that brought me to life. And so then when I met the monks and I got an opportunity to study the Vedas, which are 5,000 years old, and again, we were put through rigorous study. We sat down, we had to learn verses, we had to analyze purports, commentaries on ancient scriptures, we had to do comparative analysis of religions and tradition. Like when I was a monk, we were massively trained in philosophical analysis. And that to me gave me a real strength and confidence in these ideas. So some of the ideas I present today that may sound simple, they're based on these really ancient, deep truths that I've had the time to grapple with the greats who really understand them. So that to me is a big benefit I've had, where I've had 3 years of complete dedication to studying philosophy, and not just studying the intellectual areas, but the practical and the applicable areas as well. So thanks to my monk teachers who gave me that.
Can you tell me what you do for sleep, since this was an add-on to the TIME acronym? What's your sleep schedule, and what's your, do you have a bedtime and a wake-up routine?
Yeah, for sure. So I love Ariana's book, Sleep Revolution too. I think it's unbelievable if you really want to convince yourself that sleep is important, because I think a lot of us undervalue sleep, or we undervalue sleep before midnight. We undervalue quality sleep. We don't understand what it means. And so I think it's really important. And I think she has a line in there that says something like, this is how you sleep your way to the top. And she talks about how, you know, how successful people can sleep their way to the top, which I love. But yeah, so for me, sleep is, you know, for a long time, obviously living as a monk, we didn't sleep for long, but we meditated for long periods of time, which kind of created that deep sense of rest. But now that I don't have that, I have a very simple schedule where I sleep by 10 p.m. and I'm up at 6 a.m. And I really find that 8 hours and 15 minutes, to be exact, is like my sweet time. And I've noticed that, and I've measured that, and I've checked that to see what works for me. Because at times when I had 7 to 9 hours, I was like, all right, let me sleep for 7 and get up and be fine. And I was experimenting with 7.5 hours. And I found that actually for me to be my optimal 8 hours and 15 minutes is my sweet spot. And for a lot of people, they're like, wow, you're sleeping a lot. That's a lot of time. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm at my best. Like, that's what I want. Why would I want to sleep 7, have an extra hour and 15 minutes, but then lose 4 hours because I'm unproductive and unhappy and not at my best? That's the opportunity cost that you have to measure. See, we're measuring, like, what could I do with 1 hour and 15 minutes? My question to you is, what's your energy during that 1 hour and 15 minutes that you gained from taking it away from your sleep? And I believe that the ability to be productive in less time is more powerful than to spread it over more time. So I do that. 10 a.m. and 6 a.m. is when I wake up usually. I've trained myself after that 8 hours, 15 minutes. I know that's how much I'm going to sleep, so I don't wake up to an alarm. I really enjoy waking up without an alarm. If you need an alarm because and I don't sleep in or snooze in, by the way. I'm up at that time because my body's now used to it. But one thing I'd recommend is don't wake up to your phone and don't have your phone in your bedroom before you go to bed. So get a real alarm clock. I remember ordering, when I first did this, a little Timex alarm clock, and I would lock my phone and my laptop in my car outside so that I wouldn't even go to them. So I would lock them the night before because it was so easy for me to just leave my phone there. Yeah. And so when I wake up in the morning, again, I can't look at my phone. My alarm wakes me up. And this is one thing I'd really add. The sound you wake up to is so important for your mental state. And this is not spoken about enough. Most of the sounds that wake us up in the morning, whether it's your mom or dad shouting at you, or whether it's a really annoying alert tone, which most phones have, those are actually shocking you into being awake. You're now waking up with anxiety, and now you're carrying that anxiety throughout the day. Waking up to nature sounds, waking up to calming sounds, waking up to the sound of a gong or cymbals or ocean sounds, like sounds like that are so much better for you to wake up to. Because imagine literally imagine trying to, how many cars can go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 2 to 3 seconds? Not many. And when you're putting your foot on the gas like that with a jolt and a shock, your body's now waking up in shock. And so I would really be careful about the first thing you see in the morning and the first thing you hear in the morning, because those two things, those senses are so powerful. I would say my life is purposeful, which has both elements. So what I mean by that is my life is easy because I know what I want to do, what I stand for, I know what I believe in. But it's difficult because I have to put in hours. I have to put in work. I have to be organized. I have to live a disciplined life. But discipline, funnily enough, actually makes life easier. So people think discipline is difficult, but the result of discipline is that life becomes easier. And so waking up every day and meditating or going to the gym is difficult. It's difficult. It's not easy. It's challenging. But the result of that is life becomes easier. So I'd say that I'm dedicated to difficult discipline, but that, because it's purposeful and it has meaning, makes life easier to live. If that answers your question.
It does.
Yeah.
But and I'm asking you this for selfish reasons because I have difficult days even today, with so many blessings around me, established businesses. There are days where I'll wake up not feeling completely motivated / not feeling completely worthy.
Yeah.
I'm just asking you this kind of as a younger brother.
Oh yeah, for sure, bro. For sure. I still have that. I wake up days where I feel stressed, where I feel under pressure, where I feel like I've just got so much to do and, I haven't got the support I need or, all of that. Like I experience all of that. And what I say to people is that training your mind and your body is not about never feeling that way again. It's not that one day that won't happen. It's that you let it affect you for less time. So in the past, you and me, maybe when bad things would happen, you'd be thinking about it for like a whole month. But now when something happens, you think about it for a week. And then in a year from now, you'll think about it for one day. And then in a year from now, you'll think about it for 1 hour. And then a year from now, you'll think about it for 1 minute. And that's the goal. The goal is not to never feel stress. The goal is to feel it for less and less time. Because the point is that most of us allow stress and pressure to consume us. And so the less you let it consume you is the goal. But the problem is that when you have the goal that I should wake up and feel perfect every day, that goal puts its own pressure and stress into your life. So I wake up, man, I'm with you. Like as you said, as a younger brother, which I appreciate you saying, that means a lot to me. But as an older brother, like I would say, dude, I feel stressed. I feel pressure. I still have bad mood swings sometimes, but that's part of it. And that reminds you how far you have to go. And it keeps you humble and it keeps you grounded. And also it helps you empathize with people more. Because if you never felt that way, and then someone tells me, if a young person comes up to me and says, Jay, I feel stressed. And I'm like, oh, come on, just get over it. Like there is no such thing as stress. That's not true. And so I find that when I feel stressed or fearful or anxious, I explore it a little deeper so that next time someone says that to me, I can actually feel empathy and compassion for them because I know how it feels. And so actually, I actually feel like going through pain is the best thing for a content creator because that's how you truly empathize with people. If you don't go through pain, then you can never relate to anyone.
This is something I created called the quadrant of potential. What you'll see here is the blue section says not good at and not interested. When you do what you're not good at and you're not interested in, it feels pointless and it can lead to depression. When you do what you're not good at and you're not interested in, it can lead to depression, it can lead to anxiety, it can lead to all of those negative emotions. Now look at the yellow section of the quadrant. Not good at, but interested. There's a lot of stuff in the world that we're not good at, but we're interested in. For me, social media used to be one of those things. I was interested in social media, but I wasn't good at it. But that's something where you see potential and you feel excitement. When you're trying to learn something that you're not good at, but you're interested in, you feel a buzz. It's exciting. Look at the gray section of the quadrant. The gray section of the quadrant is good at, but don't love. That's what most of us end up doing for work. We do something that we're good at, but we don't really love it. It doesn't fulfill us. And that ends up being a profession, but it stresses us out. And finally, in the orange quadrant, you have good at and love. That's where you find passion, and that's where you experience fulfillment. What I'd love for you to do is today, tomorrow, sit down with your partner, your friend, and actually reflect on 2 to 3 things in each section of that quadrant. Do you know what you're good at and love? Do more of that. Do you know what that you're not good at but interested in? Do more of that. Spend your life in the orange and yellow side of the quadrant, and you will never, ever have to experience that pressure, that stress, anxiety in the negative sense. You'll still experience stress and pressure. I experience stress and pressure, but it's good. It motivates me, inspires me, not bring me down. Let's move away from spending time in the good at and don't loved and not good and not interested.
I really believe that the first thought you want to have in the day is a thought of gratitude. So when we would wake up as monks at 4 a.m., and our collective prayers and meditations would start at 4:30 a.m., the first prayer and meditation was about gratitude. And it was engineered in that way because when you are present in gratitude, you can't be anywhere else. So if you're in a state of gratitude, you can't be in a state of anxiety. If you're in a state of gratitude, you can't be in a state of worry. So many of us today wake up in a state of worry, in a state of anxiety. And so if your first thought can be a thought of gratitude, it can absolutely transform your day. And so I'm actually going to ask you a question, Melissa. I want you to name 2 friends. They can be real or imaginary, but I need 2 names.
Rachel and Amanda.
Okay, so Rachel and Amanda, disclaimer, I do not know Rachel and Amanda, so anything I say about them from now on is completely fictional. But let's take Rachel and Amanda. So let's say after all of this COVID pandemic lockdown is over, Melissa and her husband throw a party and they invite Rachel and Amanda. Now, they have a good time, and the next morning when Melissa wakes up and looks at her phone, she sees a text message. By the way, not straight away when she wakes up. She does all her morning rituals.
I do my meditation.
When she does her meditations. And then when she looks at her phone, she sees messages from Rachel and Amanda. Rachel says, and again, Rachel, none of this is personal or about you, I promise, if you're a real person. But Rachel says, thank you, Melissa. Had a great time. Now that's her message. And Amanda's message, when Melissa reads it, says, Melissa, That was amazing. What an incredible party. I had the best time ever. The food was incredible and the games we played were so fun. Your family and friends are all so beautiful. You know what? You made my 2020. This was amazing. Thank you so much. Now, Melissa's a grateful person, so chances are she'll feel grateful for both of those messages. But it's likely that Amanda's message is far more fulfilling to her heart, because that thankfulness, for it to truly work, for it to scientifically boost your mood, thankfulness and gratitude needs to be personalized and specific. So when we say we're grateful for the air or grateful for our hands or our body or our life, if it's not specific, if it's not personalized, you don't actually feel the effect of gratitude. You also don't feel the effect of gratitude if it just lives in your journal. If it just lives in your heart and mind, it also needs to be expressed and shared with people. It needs to be an exchange of energy. And so the fact that both her friends reached out to her is great, but the one that's personalized and specific goes a step further. So remember in your own gratitude practice. And so I try and make a point every day to choose one person a day to send a voice note to, a text message, a voice note, a FaceTime call, a video message, whatever it is, one person a day. How can I express personalized, specific gratitude? Right? That's all it takes. So that's a really key habit for me.
And at one point, one of your videos got 365 million views, right?
Yeah, one of them. Yeah.
What was that video?
That video was a video where I'm talking about not rushing people's timelines.
Okay.
So I feel like and I was just speaking to someone this week. They're like 25 years old and they feel the pressure to be a successful entrepreneur and have a multi-million-dollar business by age 30. And I'm like, why do you feel that pressure?
Yeah.
But I feel like now, like, you know, when you're 21, you've got a pressure. Why don't I have 1 million followers yet? When you're 18, you've got a pressure like, why am I not a TikTok star yet, right? It's like, there are just so much pressure. And that video was all about how like some of the most successful people in the world became successful at 40, at 50, at 60, at 70. Like there is no timeline on success.
Don't rush it.
Don't rush it.
Yeah.
And don't let anyone rush you.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the biggest mistakes we make is we go, oh, my friend's already got this. I need to do it. And when you start living as a reflection of other people, you're not living the life you want. You're living the life they want.
No question.
So that's what the video is about.
I think of inspiration like eating food. Every day you feel hungry and you don't panic when you get hungry. You just know you need to find food and eat. But you don't go, oh no, why do I feel hungry today? I ate so much yesterday and I ate so much last week. I shouldn't be hungry today. Like, why do I feel hungry today? That's not your panic. Your panic is, why didn't I plan for my meal, right? Like that's the panic. But you're not panicking going, oh my gosh, why am I hungry? I shouldn't be hungry. So it's really strange when we don't feel inspired or motivated, we panic. We go, oh no, why don't I feel inspired? I'm a negative person. Like I'm not motivated. Like what's wrong with me? Well, that's because we haven't fed ourselves. And so we have to find something that inspires us daily. You may say, it's a quote that you see that you write, your favorite quote, and you put it on a Post-it note next to your bed when you wake up in the morning. It may be a paragraph from a book. It may be listening to this podcast. Two of my best habits for inspiration were these two that I want to share with you, Melissa. One of them was around 7 years ago when I left monk life. Every day, I would listen to Steve Jobs' Stanford commencement speech every single day, to the point where I almost knew it off by heart. And I cannot tell you how much that rewired the voice in my head and how much of that speech has inspired every step and decision I've made today. I had the fortune the other day of sitting down with Matthew McConaughey on my podcast. I was interviewing him for it. I think the episode comes out next Monday. And I was telling him that at one point in my life, in about 2014, 2015, I listened to his Oscars acceptance speech, and it's about 5 minutes, and I would listen to it every single day for 30 days. And it was so profound, listening to the same thing again and again and again to rewire my mind. So inspiration can come in all ways, whether you're an auditory learner or a kinesthetic learner or a visual learner. The point is you have to feed yourself every day.
Don't gamble. They found that 77% of those who struggle financially play the lottery, right? They play the game, they gamble. 77% of people who are struggling financially gamble. The advice is don't gamble. If you're gambling,
right, and you're not winning a lot, maybe you're an online poker player, right? Maybe you're playing for entertainment, that's different, but still be careful. But maybe you're someone who's hoping that you're gonna get a quick rich scheme. A lot of these quick rich schemes online aren't real, right? And gambling is just the more obvious version of that, where it's all gamified, it feels exciting. But they found that 77% of people that are struggling financially gamble, right? So the advice was, don't gamble, don't focus in on that.
Pain makes us pay attention, right? Like pain makes you pay attention. I'll give an example. If you got a little cut here, you may not think anything of it. If the cut gets bigger and it starts to sting, you take it a bit more seriously. Now, if it gets infected, then you're like, okay, I need to do something about it. And often there are these signs in our life. There are always signs, signals, and reminders in our life. They are always there, but they're so quiet and we're so loud that we don't hear them. And so then those signals have to get louder and deeper and harder to finally get our attention. Because we're not present with ourselves, the only way our body and mind get us to be present is through pain. And so the only antidote is to be proactively present with ourselves, is to actually sit with our emotions, is to actually get to know ourselves intimately and personally. Because if we're always rushing around and moving around, our body and mind don't have the time to tell us what's going on. We don't listen to our mind and body because we're too busy. And so when we finally listen to our body and mind, then we get an opportunity to address what's going on. So to me, that's why pain makes us stop and realize and forces it to happen. Tragedy transforms us because it forces us to pay attention. But we can change that by proactively being present with our mind and body. And that's how we can create that urgency without the pain and without the tragedy.
So before I ever made a video, I pitched my video series idea to 40 media companies. And I was rejected by every single one of them before an interview because I didn't have a media or journalism background or a hosting background or a communications background. And so 40 of the top media companies said no immediately. They didn't even meet me. They didn't take the time. I then chased 2 editors of huge magazines and online magazines in London. One of them I chased while he was riding his bike across London. The other I networked with at an event, and I begged them both for jobs. And I said, look, just give me a break. I just need an opportunity. And this was when I was 28 years old, 3 years ago. And they both said to me, they said, you're too old to be in media. Like, this is not going to happen. Everyone trying to break through is 21 years old. It's not going to happen. So I had literally multiple doors closed in my face before I even made a video. And I ended up...
And this is in 2013, 2014?
This is 2016.
2016?
2016.
Wow.
And then I ended up at a ethnic minority TV training day run by the BBC in London. And I walked into this room and there were 6 colored people in there. And I was like, oh, I'm brown, you're brown and black. And, you know, it was literally like, it was a room full of ethnic minorities in London. And this was run for us. And they trained us in presenting. I went there to see if I even had the skills. And then afterwards, they were just like, yeah, Jay, you're great. Like, you could do this. And I was like, great. Do you have a job for me? And they said, no, there's no jobs in media. And I was like, okay, great. So I got to a point where I'd exhausted all options apart from starting a social media page. So I launched my first video on social media on Facebook and YouTube in 2016, just 3 years ago.
And what were you doing outside of hustling in that moment?
I was doing a lot of corporate coaching.
What gave you the confidence after being rejected by 40 media companies and being told that you're good, but there's no jobs? What still gave you the confidence to keep going?
The only thing that gave me the confidence was this principle or thought by Thomas Edison, which was, when you believe you've exhausted all options, remember this, you haven't. And I was saying to myself that unless I've genuinely knocked on every single door, I can't say to anyone that I haven't had a chance. And so my confidence came from the fact that I was going to try and knock on every different door, walk down every different path, and see what was possible. And that's my biggest advice to everyone today, is that we no longer need permission from anyone to give us an opportunity to share our voice. The audience and community can decide for themselves. You've got people waiting on social media for content. The people will decide for you. And so for all of us today, we have this unique opportunity. If you've not done something for yourself every day, if you've not taken your time to invest in yourself every day, and that isn't just it's it comes so much from understanding yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding yourself comes from the place of knowing yourself and getting to know yourself. And most of us spend so much time codependency, trying to get to know someone else and what their needs
And
are.
anticipate their needs and then shape shift so that I can be what I think you want.
Totally. Evolve
My
and
20s.
Yeah, evolve and transmorph into this person that will be the best for them. But what about if you did that for yourself to start with? And so most of us don't even know what we want to eat for dinner on a given day, or like what our favorite movies are. We struggle. We sit there for like hours trying to figure out what to watch because we haven't really got to know ourselves. And so to me, getting to know yourself is very basic. After you eat a meal, ask yourself, did I enjoy that? What did I like about it? Did I feel great 24 hours after eating it? After watching a movie, what did I like about it? Why did I enjoy it? Those basic questions will give you a much deeper understanding of yourself.
The challenge is that we think things come with emotions.
Feelings.
We think things come with feelings and emotions. And guess what? They don't. So if you chase money...
Well, they might for a moment, right? Or they won't?
I don't think they even do.
It's a false sense
It's
of
such
feeling.
a false sense of feeling. I don't, maybe for a moment, but it's so short-lived that it's not even worth counting almost. So it's like when you think that I'm chasing money, guess what? You will get money.
Yep.
And that's great. Money is really important. And money is a really important resource. But guess what? Money's not now gonna fill that gap, that void, that feeling, that emotion that you're missing in your life.
What are most people missing?
We're missing a deep sense of love. I think the biggest need in the world, as we've heard many times before from all the ancient texts, they summarize it like this: to love and be loved. Like that is the need of humanity. To love and be loved. And when we don't experience that, we then start looking for status. We then start looking for money. We then start looking for recognition.
To help us give the feeling of false sense of love.
Correct. And the challenge is because most of us didn't experience that from our parents. And this is the key thing. What we crave in life is what we did or didn't get from our parents. Mm-hmm. What our parents did give us is what we continue to crave, or what they didn't give us is what we continue to crave. Mm-hmm. So you'll find that most people's love languages that they chase are things that their parents didn't give them. So if their parents didn't give them time, they now crave everyone's time. If their parents didn't give them gifts, they crave gifts. If their parents didn't give them acts of service, they're craving those acts of service. So it's because of our childhood. And if we don't learn to process all of that experience, which most people never get the time to do, and I empathize with that because I've had to go through that. I've seen me repeating my parents' patterns.
What was the thing you were craving?
So I would crave, a big thing for me was I would crave surprises and gifts because—
That's your thing.
Yeah, that's my thing.
Still is your thing.
It's still my thing.
Yeah.
And I—
Did your parents not do that for you?
No, they did. My mom did a lot of it.
That's why you still crave it.
Correct. So my mom would always, every year on my birthday, she'd always surprise me with the one thing I wanted. And I wasn't spoiled growing up. I didn't have a lot growing up, but she would get that one thing, whether it was like a Power Rangers toy or whether it was whatever it was, you know, something, you
Video
know.
game or
Yeah,
something,
thing is you want as a kid, right? And she would always surprise me with that. And that became so deep rooted. Now I'll give you an example. When I then married my wife, you just expect people to know that.
That they're gonna do the same thing.
Totally. And so
she
now
didn't do that.
No, because I'm expecting my wife to be like my mom in the sense of I expect her to surprise or show me love in the same way. And she doesn't know that. She's not a mind reader. I can't expect her to know that. So it took communication. It took time for me to explain that. So spirituality in business is an interesting concept because a lot of people today see it as an oxymoron or mutually exclusive. And the truth is that spirituality is so powerful that it actually spreads across everything. And I know all of you understand that, but it's like, if spirituality is what we all say it is, then it has the purity and the power to spread across anything. And again, going back to our previous theme, the key element is this for service of humanity, for others, or is this in the service of myself? Now, that's a fine line.
Yeah.
And I've been on the wrong side of that line plenty of times. So there's plenty of times when I assess options and opportunities in front of me, and I realize I'm only taking that option because there's ego involved. I'm only taking that option because there's an opportunity or there's a big payout or there's a nice dollar sign next to it. And I'm only doing it for that. And I've said yes to stuff like that plenty of times to know that I'm not perfect. But the awareness is what I would encourage people to do, is having the ability to be like, here are the 3-4 options in my life right now. Let me write a word above them, which is the intention of why I'm choosing that. And if the word isn't love or service, it's not going to feel good after I finish it. And so that's what I would encourage people to do as a reflection without needing anyone in their life or anyone around them. And I said to her, and this is a monk statement that we used to repeat, I said to her, I'm just not going to judge the moment. Don't judge the moment, because what we do is we try to label moments as good or bad. And when you label a moment as bad, it now does not have the opportunity to become good. I'll give an example. If I go, I don't like this book's bad, right? And I love this book. But if I say that, guess what? I will never pick it up and recognize the value that's inside of it, because you've labeled it.
Yes.
And we label stuff, like we label, oh, that restaurant's bad. But when you label a
that
moment,
person's bad,
that person's bad. Now you can't learn from that person. Oh, a great one. That's a really good one. As soon as you start labeling people or anything as good or bad, you limit it. You stop it from being something else. And here's the truth. Every moment can evolve into being anything if you give it the opportunity to.
Right.
But as soon as you say it's got no value anymore, you lose it. And so for me, I had to say to myself, don't judge the moment. And I'd keep repeating that to myself.
Don't judge where you're at.
Don't judge
what's
this.
happening.
Yeah, don't judge it as negative. Don't just start saying it's negative. Because guess what? We've all been in positions where a gift turned into a curse and a curse turned into a gift.
That's true.
Right? We've also
where our
been
dreams
in the
came
opposite.
true and it ended up not being what we wanted.
Exactly.
And it fell apart and it led us into our dreams.
Totally. Why is it that so many people that win the lottery go broke?
Yeah.
Gifts can turn into curses too.
True.
But because we label them as the best moment in our life or the worst moment in our life. Whereas when you approach things to neutrality and just what you have on the table, you can be like, okay, what am I going to do next? I had the fortune of interviewing Walter Isaacson. He's famously known to write the biographies of the biggest icons of all time. So he wrote the official biography of Leonardo da Vinci, Einstein, Steve Jobs. Like, it's insane. And he worked at CNN and Time before that. And he wrote a new book about a lady named Jennifer Doudna, who is the founder of gene editing. Now, she's a female scientist who was told by her school teachers that women don't become scientists, right? Like women can't be scientists. She just won the Nobel Prize for her discovery. So amazing. And he just wrote a book about her life. It's called Codebreaker. The reason why I'm sharing all of that is that some girl's going to pick up that book, or guy, both, or anyone, or they are going to pick up that book and they are going to find their role model in that book. We may not have a monk on speed dial, we may not have met a monk when you were 18, but you're going to find when you start searching and looking, and when you find that, you're going to read it, you're going to internalize it, and it's going to change how you think. And I just feel that encouraging people to find coaches, guides, and mentors is the best thing I can do, because there's no one we admire that doesn't have that. Whether they're an athlete, whether they're a singer, whether they're a musician, whether they're a videographer or editor, everyone's had mentors, guides, and coaches, but it's become so far removed from our lives today that everyone thinks they have to figure it out for themselves. And that's where the mess is created from. It sounds like an obvious point, but it's almost like we obviously haven't pushed it enough.
Right.
Because as a man, to take another person as your mentor also requires you to have humility. You've got to forgive yourself. You got to be compassionate to yourself. So the simple act of taking on a mentor actually does more for your masculinity than anything else.
Half the reason why we don't get started is we, put this big plan or big next step ahead of like, okay, now I have to, like you said, like go and build this new cafe and we're going to have 12 on every street corner in New York City and it's going to be the next big thing. And, who can live up to that? And I think the same was for me. I wasn't judging myself for trying out 2 lives. I wasn't judging myself for my mistakes. And maybe I did judge myself at that time, but I've learned now to just release myself of that judgment and allow myself to experience and explore without putting that in. Even in this time that we're in right now, like I think I'm, encouraging people to just explore and experiment in this time rather than judge yourself or feel guilty, because guess what? None of us planned for this. No one knew it was happening. And that's kind of life in general, but we're all feeling it at the same time right now. And so you can't expect yourself to have a plan, but you can allow yourself to explore, experience, and experiment. And that's actually what's going to help you find the plan or what you want to focus on, rather than forcing yourself to feel you need to focus right now.
How much of a positive environment supports us in our growth or holds us back? There are some people who have the perfect family situation, resources, beautiful backyards and nature, who are lazy. And there are others who have, divorced parents, abusive parents, abusive friends, an environment of a desert, and they figure out a way to thrive.
Totally.
How much importance does our environment play in our overall success?
If you look at the examples that you just shared and you really analyzed life, you'd see very little, because you see people craft their own life. So a good example for me is that when I came back from living in the ashram, and there were other people who may have been monks who'd also left the path, and I came back to a not financially successful or supportive family. So my family doesn't have abundant wealth and couldn't necessarily have taken care of me or paid for me forever. Mm-hmm. And I had to figure out my own life. And that to me was a great sense of impetus and incentive to go and figure it out and learn new skills and network and meet people. And I saw other friends whose parents had like a property portfolio with like 10 properties ready to hand them over. They had a BMW the second that they came out, whatever, from their own life. Yep. Or I even have friends that had all of that and didn't become monks and didn't even find careers. So I've also got friends that I went to school with that today don't even have careers, even though their parents were really well established. Right. Which has, all of these examples have continued me to believe that we truly have influence in our, more than our environment. Our environment affects us for sure. It plants seeds and weeds into our life, but there is still a choice. And I think even if you feel there isn't a choice, simply by accepting that there is, it means you have a chance to get out of there. And I think that's what...
Because if you don't accept that there is, then you're just going to stay stuck.
Correct. Like, there have been so many times in my life, and there's a beautiful quote from Edison. I don't think I said this last time, but if I did, it's worth repeating. He said that when you believe you've exhausted all options, remember this, you haven't. And the reason why I love that is your mind continuously feels stuck when it's tried the obvious. And that's why a lot of creativity and focus studies say that the first 10 ideas that come to your mind are never the most interesting. It's when you get into the 11th idea that you start breaking the pattern. And so if someone asks you, what's your best business idea? Your first 10 ideas are probably not that innovative. And so the mind constantly gets stuck on that train, and you've got to keep reminding yourself that there is another door. There could be another pathway. I was thinking about a piece of advice so one of my closest spiritual mentors, who was in London, I knew him since I was probably like 12 and properly since I was 18. He passed away this year from stage 4 brain cancer. And he'd had brain cancer for about, I think like 4 years now. And so I hadn't really had a real interaction with him for the past few years, because every time I saw him, he wasn't fully functioning in his short-term memory. His long-term memory was there, but his short-term memory wasn't. And I remember speaking to him probably about 7-8 years ago and asking him the question. I said to him, I've got so many ideas. There's so many things I could do. Where do I start? And he said this beautiful thing to me. He said, what? Your role should be to open up every door possible. And he said, let the world close the doors you're not meant to walk through and walk through the ones that remain open. And what I realized is most of us are just not opening up enough doors because we think we only have the option of 2 doors. We look at life as binary, 0 and 1, 0 and 1, right? It's just this A or B, this or that. And I mean, I think you'd say this too about you and every guest you ever had on. I don't think life is ever this or that. It's like this, that, and maybe that, and that. And there's always a gap.
You've been able to separate how a video does or performs
from
your own self-worth.
Oh, for sure,
and I think that is really kind of the key in the question for when that TikTok or that Instagram video turns off. They're left with themselves. And one of the things you teach is being with yourself. But if they don't know how to be with themselves, so I guess this is an opportunity. I'm asking you to to talk to them if someone's listening right now who is struggling with that, because I have struggled with it, especially from a service perspective. Like, I'm here to be of service. Why am I making this about? Why do I care? Why should I care? I don't care. Do I care? I do care. I care too much. No, I didn't get, and it's like, should I post that? No, but this is my platform. I want to post whatever I want. I want to post a picture of the sunset. but no one's going to like the picture of the sunset, Justin. So post something. I've had these conversations with myself, and the fact that I'm having them drive me crazy. And you just strike me as somebody who doesn't have them as much.
The philosophical answer and the more spiritual answer is I'm flawed. I do seek validation in what people think of me. I do get upset if someone doesn't like my videos and like someone else's. And I forgive myself, I'm compassionate, and I start over again. Like, that's just the real answer. Like, that's just the truth.
I love that.
I mess up, I fall down. I get that I do get worried about, oh, well, will I be relevant next year? Oh, I do get worried about like, oh, will people care about me? I do get worried about like, have I said anything good on this podcast right now? Like, is there anything that I've said that is actually even worth this podcast? I do think about that like every time. I think about that every time I record a solo episode of my podcast. And I think about it all the time, but what do? I allow myself to feel that. I allow myself to experience it. I forgive myself for judging myself, and then I start again. And I start every day as if it was new. And my wife and I have this amazing ability, we both have it, is that we can go to sleep, forget the night before, and start again. And I think that my memory literally does that. I erase all of my failures and mistakes from the day before and just start afresh every day, because it's the only way I know to allow myself to have another go at it. Just the idea of allowing yourself to have some compassion for yourself. And I think everyone who's sitting out there who's judging themselves, accept that you judge yourself, be compassionate, but then seek to redirect that energy. Whatever table you're at and whoever's at that table is what you judge yourself by. I spent years of my life working really hard from Monday to Friday, only to have to wake up on a Saturday to do all my cleaning. Not only did that take up the whole day, it made less time for social interaction, for connecting with friends and family, and even time to work on my passions. And what ended up happening is that by the time it was Monday again, the house felt unclean and I felt like I'd made no progress. Initially, we all believe that doing it in one day seems like the best method. It's out of sight, out of mind. You don't have to think about it for the whole week, and in one day you get it sorted. The challenge with that is that in your mind, it also feels like a bigger mountain to climb. Scheduling it out during the week makes all the difference. Tackling small tasks, putting things back immediately after using them, washing a plate immediately after eating something makes it so much simpler. One of the best ways to do this is to create days dedicated to specific things. This makes it feel like a challenge or an experiment. So for example, a wipe down Wednesday. Knowing that all you have to do is wipe down your surfaces may take no more than 5 to 10 minutes. I also really love floor Fridays. Now the floor can sometimes take a bit longer, but still scheduling out around 30 minutes to do that could make all the difference. And if you live with more than one person, you can divide these days and these areas between you so that you can make it simpler and easier to handle and tackle. There's quite a few benefits to this. When we do the same thing at the same time on the same day every single week, it becomes so much easier for the mind to tackle that task. When we divide and dissect our tasks up in this way, we avoid burnout. We avoid feeling like we have this big, huge mountain to climb and solve, and we start tackling elements every single day. When you're feeling anxious, what's happening is that your mind is either rushing to the past or it's predicting and projecting the future. So you're either anxious about something that you experienced before, or you're feeling really nervous and anxious about something that might or could happen in the future. The best way to come back into the present moment is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. You want to start off by looking around wherever you are and noticing the 5 things you can see. It could be the windows, the walls, the ceilings. You then want to focus on the 4 things you can touch. It could be something you're wearing and you really want to feel the texture. It could be what you're sitting on. Just noticing it and really grounding yourself in holding on to that. Then it's about 3 things you can hear. It could be nothing. It could be white noise. Then the 2 things you can smell, inhale. It could be a scent you're wearing. It could be a flower. And then finally, the 1 thing you can taste. When you practice this, it brings you back into the present moment and helps you not focus on the anxiety or the nervousness, but on taking action from exactly where you are. There was a CEO of a very large car manufacturer, and he was known to be extremely successful, very productive, very effective. But the one thing he was failing at is that his employees really didn't like working for him because he worked late. How many of you feel that way? Oh, perfect. That's good. So no one here finishes late, or everyone's managers are in the room. Whichever way you want to take it, it's up to you, right? It's up to you. I don't know. So that was one of his challenges, that his employees hated work for him because they all left late because of him. He used to work till 10 p.m. every evening, so they would leave just after him. True story, right? They used to leave just after him. So one of his assistants, she came and said this to him. She said, morale's a bit down. Everyone's struggling at work. We're losing a few people. A few people are quitting their work. People, they're not well. They don't feel like their health is being taken care of. They're not spending enough time with their families. You really need to consider this. He said, okay, leave it with me. We'll figure it out. From the next week, on a Monday, this gentleman who left at 10 p.m. every night got up out of his desk at 6 p.m. He packed his bag, switched off his computer, left the office, jumped into his car, and all the employees at this time are like peeking out the window, just like making sure, like figuring out where is this guy going. He pulls into his beautiful car, pulls out, and drives away from the building. It was the first time it had ever happened at 6 p.m. They all decided to wait till 7 p.m. before they left. They waited, and they left. On Tuesday, the same thing happened. They looked out the window again. He left at 6 p.m. again. This time they waited till 6:45, and they left. They did the same thing, and this happened for 3 months, where he left at 6 p.m. every day. 3 months later, his assistant, who'd made him aware of this challenge, she came back to him and she said to him, I'm really confused about something. She said, you've been leaving 4 hours earlier every single day, but you're not behind on your calls, you're not behind on your emails, and you're still performing at the same level, if not better, than when you were leaving on time. And she said, how are you managing to do this? Are you working at home? Well, how are you managing this? And he said, let me tell you something interesting. He said, every day, I get into my car at 6 p.m., I drive out. He said, I take a drive for an hour. He said, I take that drive, I listen to music, I re-energize. He said, I sometimes go for a bit of a walk at the park as well. He said, I come back fresher at 7 p.m. and I work for 3 more hours. And he said, if it helps them knowing that I've left at 6 p.m. so that they can have a better life and have the values that they want and value what they want to give their time to, that doesn't mean I've got to give up what I value my time to. He said, I love my work. I love being here till 10 p.m. I'm extremely ambitious. I love being here. But they should also love being where they are. And that to me is an incredible example of how someone actually lives, foregoing the perception of others. Even though he changed his own life to help other people, they'll never perceive him that way. They just think he's changed his mind and he goes home early. They don't realize the struggle that he's putting in. And that's what I've realized. Whether you're putting in struggle or sacrifice, never look for the validation or approval of others to validate that sacrifice or that struggle, because they don't need to understand anyway. It's always been your inner journey. It's always been part of your inner growth. And I remember when I made a decision to become a monk after business school, all my friends were like, what the hell are you doing, right? We just finished and everyone was going off to work at Goldman Sachs and different banks and consulting firms, etc. I think a few people came to Google as well. And they all said to me, they said, what do you mean you're becoming a monk? Like, what does that mean? Like, who graduates and thinks about that? And I remember having to detach. And when I reflect, and I'd love for you to do this, reflect on some of the best decisions you've made on your life. Ask yourself, what decision did you make? What did people say about it? And what was going on in your mind? I've learned through doing that exercise, it's a much longer exercise, it can take days, and we do it in our coaching exercises. I've learned that the best decisions in my life have been the biggest risks. Everyone's disagreed with me, but I've been hell-bent on making it happen. And so now when I see an opportunity like that, I do it. Because I've realized that that's the pattern of the philosophy of my life. When I make decisions that are big risks, no one agrees with me, and it doesn't fit with what society is saying, those work out to be my best decisions in life. And I'm not saying that that's your pattern. I'm saying that you have a pattern and a rhythm as well. And it's part of your journey to find it. After I've completed my work day, when I've finished all of my tasks, the last thing I do is check my schedule for the next day. Now, I'm one of those people that follows their schedule to a T. I believe it makes life simple. When I get my schedule out and look at the next day, I can think about how I'm going to feel. Have I got too much or too little on that? Do I want to add or edit something? It gives me perspective and allows me to get a glance on the next day so I can rearrange or reorganize based on the energy I feel today. Sometimes we feel so tired and exhausted, but without making that change and edit, we take that exhaustion in the next day. The other reason why I like looking ahead is that it gives me an opportunity to mentally prepare. I may have a podcast the next day and there's a guest that I'm really excited about and I may have to calm my nerves. Or sometimes it's an event or a meeting that I'm looking forward to and I just want to go over the bullet points before I go to bed. It gives me an opportunity to rehearse the day in advance, and often I'll even sit and do a short visualization just to imagine how tomorrow will look.
Terry Pratchett, a famous author, whether you've read his stuff or not, a famous author, he said that people feel that stories are defined by people, but actually it's the other way around. People are defined by stories. When you're listening to me today, I've shared so many stories with you because we define ourselves by the stories we tell ourselves on a daily basis. The story you wake up to will be the story that will be the story of your day. Right? If you wake up and you tell yourself a positive story, you'll have a positive day. You wake up, tell yourself a negative story, you'll have a negative day. Positive and negative thoughts are like seeds that either grow weeds or plants, right? They grow inside of us throughout the day. Anytime you plant something, it's like planting a seed. And the more you water it, the more you think about it, it grows. And of course, if it's negative, it's like a weed. And it starts to grow and grow and grow, and of course won't bear fruits. So really think about that. Tell yourself the right stories, connect with the right stories, because ultimately, the universe is made up of stories, not atoms and numbers, right? We all love stories, we breed stories. Your life is a living story that you're writing every day. And I genuinely mean that.
When I first joined the ashram, I was asked to do a lot of cleaning. And in the beginning, I found it tedious and a waste of time. What if I could be serving humanity? What if I could be reading a book? What if I could be studying and making notes? And I had all these excuses in my mind. But of course, I'd chosen to be a monk, and therefore I was encouraged to clean. And I started to find that cleaning did so much for my mind. And recently I looked at some studies that actually back that up. There are so many benefits of cleaning in a physical space that will also clear out your mind. A research study from UCLA by Saxby and Repeti found that cleaning gives you a better sense of control over your environment and engages your mind in a repetitive activity that can have a calming effect. What?
I'm so moving. This would be funny and fast, wouldn't it? So run around it.
No.
We're like just
I think this is the fun of it. Okay, so we did it. Here it goes. Really proud of what we did. It was fun. It was fun doing it.
And
I was excited to come to this conversation.
Thank you.
Because I'm like, I'm gonna get to learn from you. We're gonna bond. We're gonna, deepen our connection. Like, I'm gonna make a new friend. Like, I want to be around that energy. I don't want to walk into environments where I'm constantly feeling like, oh God, why am I here?
Yeah.
And so we hear it all the time, but genuinely your relationships, Harvard's 75-year-old study suggests that human relationships is the number one reason people are happy or not. Yeah. I went to Sardinia earlier this year, middle of last year. Sardinia's in Italy. It's a blue zone. Blue zones are the places where people live the longest in the world, and the most amount of people live over 100. The number one reason they said that is community. Yeah. That's a big reason why people live longer and live happier lives. Yeah. So for me, it's find that human connection and community. And please don't settle for your family. Like, it doesn't have to be your family. Like, there are friends and then there's family, and then there are friends that become family. And my point is, go find that community. Like, so many people are like, I hear this all the time, like, Jay, my family's negative. I'm surrounded by negative environment. I'm like, yeah, but we don't live in a world where that's your only option anymore. You can find tribes and communities anywhere. And when I look at forgiveness, I define forgiveness in this way to help you. The stages of forgiveness. How many times, even in the past, did someone hurt you and you said, I'm gonna get my revenge? In that voice, in front of a mirror, and recorded it. No, that's not. Any intention that starts with revenge will lead to pain. Just understand that for a moment. Any intention that you plant based on revenge will ultimately not fulfill you. Because revenge means the same person that broke you
has to fix you. And when we want revenge, we want the same person that broke us to fix us. Because we're doing revenge, which means we want to show them how we changed and how we did it and how we got it right. And when you try and do that, guess what? If that person doesn't feel you got it right, you're still carrying it. If that person doesn't feel you got the best revenge body, if that person doesn't feel you got the best revenge business, if that person doesn't feel you got the best revenge car, you won't be satisfied. Because revenge means that your metric, your reference point is still that person. The person who broke you cannot fix you. And you do not fix yourself by breaking someone else.
What's one thing that we can do for more wealth, so more abundance in all the areas of our life?
So there's a beautiful, beautiful Sanskrit word named mudita. And mudita means to feel joy in others' success. So it's been described that we know how to feel pain when other people feel pain. That's what we call empathy or compassion. But we don't know how to feel joy when other people feel joy. And in Think Like a Monk, I talk about this because I talk about how there are an infinite number of seats in the theater of happiness. But because we live in a finite world, we've believed that there are only X number of tickets in that concert. There are only X number of seats, limited number of seats in that sports game. There are only this many people that have the opportunity to be abundant, wealthy, and successful. And as soon as you put a limit in your mind and believe that there are only a finite number of seats, you can't enjoy the show. And so mudita is the perspective of saying, if I can feel joy for someone else's success and realize that takes nothing away from me, because there's infinite number of seats. And actually, forget infinite number of seats. There is a seat with your name on it. There are tickets with your name on it in the theater of happiness, sitting there waiting for you. But because you want someone else's seat so bad, because you're chasing someone else's seat so bad, and they're already sitting on it, your seat's lying there empty. And so if you just claim your seat, and so if we can experience other people's joy, if we can look to celebrate other people's successes and joys, then that will open up abundance in our life. A, because we're now part of their success. Have you ever noticed how when you celebrate someone else's success, you're a part of their success? So you're doing that. Second, you get to learn from their journey. See, when you're envious or you compare, you don't get to learn. So you've lost everything. Whereas when you celebrate someone, you get to go, oh, well, what did they do right? Notice how if you're criticizing someone who's won or you're negative towards them, you go, oh, well, I've got nothing to learn from them. It was easy from them. Who cares about them? But if you go, wait a minute, they got something right. What did they do? You can learn from them. So the first thing is you're a part of their success. The second thing is you learn from them or their journey. And the third thing is you realize that there's a seat with your name on it. And if you can do that, abundance and wealth and everything will come. And you start to follow your own path. As the Gita says, which I quote in the book, it's better to follow your own path imperfectly than to try to pursue someone else's path perfectly. And so allowing yourself to just chase that seat that has your name on it is far better than trying to get in someone else's seat. The incredible thing about gratitude is that when you're present in gratitude, you can't be anywhere else. That means that if you're having a thankful thought, you can't have a worry thought. If you're having a grateful thought, you can't have an anxious thought. What an incredible creation. Gratitude and thankfulness has to be practiced in a particular way. It has to be, first of all, expressed. Keeping a gratitude journal is wonderful. Writing down what you're grateful for is beautiful. But it's only when you express it that it starts to have the impact that I'm speaking about. The second way it has to be practiced is it has to be specific. It has to be specific to the person. It has to be something specific that happened recently, that's current, or even if it happened in the past. And the third is, it has to be personalized. It has to be something that you'd only say to them. It's not something that you could send to 20 people and they could all feel it was about them. Let me give you an example. 2 people come to your home for a party. They both text you the day after the party. The first person texts you, they'd say, Jay, thanks so much. The second person texts me and they say, Jay, we had an amazing time.
We loved meeting all your friends. We loved meeting your family. It was such a great time. And the food was out of this world. Thank you so much, obviously, to Radhi. And the games that we played were just so much fun. It was the highlight of my year. Which message is going to make you feel more loved and cared for? Obviously, it's the second, because it's not only expressed, but it's specific and it's personalized. Now, the amazing thing about gratitude given in that way is that not only is the receiver happy, but the giver is so much happier as well. The bond that you create when you share that type of thankfulness will start to reduce anxiety in your life because it boosts your immune system, it boosts your mood, and it boosts your relationships. There's a beautiful quote from the Dalai Lama where he said that we're born to help people, and if we can't help them, let's at least not hurt them. And I think that's the intention, that you want to leave every person happier than you found them, leave every place cleaner than you found it, leave every project more productive than you found it. Like, you want to feel that if you couldn't uplift something or someone, at least don't pull it down. And I think that when you live like that in your intention, people feel that. This isn't necessarily something that you even have to say or do. People feel that when you just leave a place and all you wanted to do was give your energy in a positive way. So to me, intention is just coming from a place of how do I leave every person just a little bit happier than I found them. I don't have to change their life.
Right.
But how
try
do
not to hurt them.
Try not to hurt them.
How overcoming failure, or even life in general through this whole process, is an inner journey. And I'll explain what I mean by that. One of our biggest challenges with failures is that we start worrying about others' approval and validation. How many of you feel that way, right? Be honest, how many of you feel that way, right? We all feel that way. That we're worried about breaking the mold because of what people would say. We're worried about taking a risk because we don't know how someone's going to react, right? Last week, I was doing a Facebook Live Q&A, and I was asked a conversation. We had about 2,000 people joining in for about half an hour. And one of them asked me this question, and it stayed with me ever since I did it. And they asked me this question. They said, what's the most difficult thing you've ever overcome in life? Right? What's the most difficult thing you've ever overcome in life? Through my head ran sports injuries, ran health challenges, ran emotional challenges. You know, all these different thoughts ran through my head. And then this answer came to me. And the answer came to me, and I said to myself, it's not even something I've overcome, but I felt it was the right thing to share. I said that one of the most important things, or one of the most difficult things that any of us can overcome, and I haven't overcome it, is living for the perception of others. That's actually one of the most difficult things we can overcome. When we forego the voice of our ego and tune into the voice of our intuition, right? A voice of our ego says, what will people say? The voice of our ego says, what if you don't make it? The voice of our ego says, this part will be safer. This path is better trodden on. And the voice of our intuition is saying, but you don't love that. You love this. This is your heart's calling. This is what's going to make you happy every day. If you can make this work, it will be phenomenal. And that's why I always remind myself, and I've been saying this to myself for years, when I've done jobs I didn't like, when I've done jobs that were okay, and I've done jobs that I always said to myself, I'd rather die trying to make a difference and not succeed than don't try at all. It's always been a mantra I've repeated to myself. I'd rather die trying to make a difference and not succeed than not try at all. Because what's exciting is the journey of everyday growing and becoming the person I think I need to be to attract the goal that I want. That's more exciting to me than even reaching that goal. Believing every day that it's possible, believing that it's possible, looking at that limitless possibility and working in that way. Therefore, a lot of the challenges we have are simply to give us responsibility for the success that we're about to take on, right? Pressure creates diamonds, right? Pressure creates diamonds. It's not possible to have these beautiful diamonds without pressure. And therefore, for all of us, there's different ways that we'll be pressurized in our inner journey. But learning that it's an inner journey is extremely important. And what I mean by that is foregoing the perception of others.
And it's that you can climb up a ladder, but is it against the right wall? Are you climbing up a wall that you actually want to climb up? If you climb up the left-hand side of the wall, but that wasn't the place you wanted to be at the top, there's no point of being at the top. And one of the reasons why we procrastinate and overthink is because what we're chasing isn't meaningful enough. It's not purposeful enough. It's not fulfilling enough. We don't realize that we're just trying to get up the wrong wall, and we never take the first step because we don't actually care. Put your ladder against a wall that you care about climbing. I know that when I deeply care about the pain or suffering of another that I want to help support or serve, that gets me out of bed more than any other procrastination technique or hack in the entire world. Inspiration helps us deal with anxiety because when we're feeling inspired, when we're feeling motivated, we're able to use that emotion to help navigate the anxious emotions we're having. The way I like to get inspired is by listening to audiobooks. It's also by listening to incredible speeches. Recently, I had the fortune of interviewing Matthew McConaughey on my podcast On Purpose, and I said to him that at one point in my life, I used to listen to his Oscars acceptance speech from around 2015 every single day. It's only 5 minutes. I would listen to it in the morning and it would give me this boost of inspiration. Instead of starting my mornings with looking at my phone and opening up my mind up to news, notifications, negativity, and noise, I was starting my day with an inspirational word. Maybe an inspirational paragraph from a book you love or an inspirational quote.
Your whole podcast is about on purpose. What's the difference between discovering your purpose, finding your purpose, living it, and living a purposeful life?
I think that living your purpose is where it's so much about you and your journey, and living a purposeful life is when you're now letting that overflow into everyone else's life. Mm-hmm. So it's like you want to find your purpose and you want to feel satisfied in that, but a purposeful life is where you are igniting other people's purposes and it's overflowing with that love and that compassion and gratitude. And that's hard because it takes time. And you can't expect people to do that while they're still filling up too. And I think sometimes everyone will always look like they're finished and they're done and they made it. It's like, no one's ever made it. And you speak to some of the most successful people in the world and even they don't feel they've made it. And so we are always doing both at the same time. You're always filling up your purpose and you're always trying to be purposeful at the same time, but you're not ever going to be fully in purpose and you're never fully going to be purposeful. It's all a symbiotic relationship that has to happen in parallel.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to your question?
Makes sense to me.
What I want you to do is start scheduling time with yourself in your diary, in your calendar. You would never cancel an important meeting with someone else, but we don't even schedule one with ourselves. If you start by having that time as your meditation time, where you're not on your phone, you're not watching TV, you're not listening to a message or responding to an email, you just sit with yourself and check in with yourself. And you ask yourself, how am I doing today? How do I feel? What do I need to do better? Just checking in with yourself is the beginning of your meditation practice.
We live in an age of instant, right? Instant coffee, instant food, instant delivery. Everything's instant. We don't, in one sense, even need to adapt. And I know Google, I've spent a lot of time in the London offices of Google, and I'm sure it's even better here if I'm allowed to say that. But I'm sure that everything's available, right? You guys have everything available. You don't, in one sense, need to adapt. You turn up to work and everything that you need is right there. And that's the society we live in, but I'm talking about how we need to have an adaptive attitude. I had something happen to me about a month ago when I was traveling to LA. How many of you have been to LA? How many of you like LA? Okay, popular over here, yeah. So I love LA, right? I love LA. So I was going to LA and I love social media as well. So I got my phone out and I sent a tweet and I said, I can't wait to go to LA. And I said, I really, really hope I can get tickets to the LA Lakers game tonight because I'm a big basketball fan. How many of you are basketball fans? Awesome. And no one here supports the Lakers, right? Oh, okay, awesome. Good. Oh, nice, okay. And I said, I really hope I can get a reservation at my favorite pizza place because I have a favorite pizza place in LA. Anyone like pizza? Yeah, easy. And so I tagged in my favorite pizza place. I sent the tweet, thought nothing of it. I got on the plane. I usually just go to sleep. That's my usual travel routine. Went to sleep, got off at the other side. I grabbed my bags, got outside, ordered an Uber, of course, jumped in, got off at the other end, was greeted at the hotel by the concierge, went to see the receptionist, and they said to me, here you go, Mr. Shetty. Here's the keys to your room. Here's the card. Told me about a bit of the facilities. And then they said, you know what? We actually saw your tweet. And because of that, we booked you a reservation at your favorite pizza place, and we've got you tickets to the LA Lakers game tonight. They're upstairs in your room, right? Now that didn't really happen. But imagine if it did, right? Imagine if it did. I've had similar things happen to me. These are all hints and tips I'm throwing out to the LA Lakers and my favorite pizza place. But imagine if it did. Now, how many of you, be honest, how many of you were with me when I was saying that? How many of you believe me that it was true? Yeah? Why did you believe me? Because it's possible. Because today it's possible. right? It's not about who I am. I'm not famous. You believe me because it's possible. You believe me because today brands have to know what's happening in a customer's life. Today brands have to be aware of what people are talking about on social media. You believe me because it's possible. But actually, our experience of life is very different. You can do that for things, but you can't do that for experiences. How many of you have had an instant, powerful experience? It's rare. You can have instant coffee, you can have instant food, but to have an instant, powerful experience, on-demand experience, it's not very easy. It takes a lot more work. And that's why adaptive attitude for our personal lives, even if our technological lives are instant, we can't apply that same thinking. And often that challenges us when we're overcoming failures, that we expect things to happen quicker because everything else in our life happens quicker. So the adaptive attitude, a great story is about a gentleman who actually worked at Yahoo. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. Worked at Yahoo for 12 years. I think he graduated from Stanford. He had a great lineup of a great CV. He had a great career trajectory ahead of him, but he really wanted to go work at Facebook and Twitter, right? So he applied to Facebook and he got quite far, but then he got rejected, so he sent a tweet. And the tweet said, really nice people, didn't make it in. I hope my journey will go better. I hope this can work out. He then applied to Twitter, got quite far, finally got rejected, and sent a tweet saying, I'm glad I got rejected. It was a bit of a long commute, right? He was seeing the positive side of things of getting rejected. A few years on, him and his friend from Yahoo, they went away and they started working on apps. They thought, let's start a startup, let's start working in that space, use of all of our thing. We've been rejected from this world. Let's try go out there and do something together. They went out there in 4 years, they sold their app to Facebook for $19 billion, right? And that app is WhatsApp. Now, I'm not sure if WhatsApp's so popular over here, but in the UK and over in India when I'm traveling over there, everyone's using WhatsApp, right? And they sold that app for $19 billion. That's Brian Acton, the co-founder of WhatsApp. That's him. He was rejected from Facebook and Twitter, and if you go onto Google and type in Facebook, Twitter rejection for Brian Acton, you'll see the tweets that he posted. They now have millions of retweets, right? They're really popular now. But at that time when he sent them, no one even noticed. And he reacted positively online, sharing his rejection with the world. And I look at that and I think, wow, that's powerful. How many of us, including how many of us, would be able to share a rejection from a corporate employer on Facebook, Twitter, online, on any of our social media platforms? It's extremely difficult. But his adaptive attitude of actually looking at the good side of things, looking at the positive, moving away from what the traditional person would do through a rejection, meant that a few years later he sold it. And the joke that I've heard in Silicon Valley when I've traveled there is that Mark Zuckerberg paid $19 billion for a person he could have hired for about $100,000. So it's amazing. It's an amazing story of having an adaptive attitude, very different to how we deal with technology in our lives, but really powerful of what we can achieve.
How many of you have tried to change everything all at the same time? You say to yourself, I want to work on my health, I'm going to improve my career, I'm going to get promoted this year, and we're going to go on date night every night. You start getting fixated on improving every area of your life. It comes from this desire to be better and do more. But the truth is, you have to choose that one big priority. It has to be not only at the top of the list, in the beginning, it has to be the list. There is only one thing you can improve at a time, and you need to choose wisely. It's so easy to get caught up and think, I want to improve my career. I also want to learn more. I also want to work on my relationship. I also want to work on my health. We have to stop that and say, this is my big priority for the next 30 days. Make your first step a small step. You may want to be up here, but you need to start down here. You need to take the first step. The reason why most people never get started is that their goal is so big that they think they have to achieve that on day one. They think that if they don't get there, they can't start here. And this is the most debilitating, frustrating feeling. And that's why we have to simplify and create that first small step. Reading is one of my favorite things to do. But sometimes my stack of books that I want to read is bigger than the amount of time I have. And at the same time, I'm trying to figure out which one am I going to get the most value from. And often I'll overthink and procrastinate. I'm sure you can relate. So many friends will come to me and say, my partner doesn't spend enough time.
Or I don't have enough time.
And what they're really saying is, from a partner point of view, is I really want energy, intimacy, and presence and attention.
It's attention.
You're not asking for time, you're asking for attention. And I've had friends who have gone on weekends away with their partners, and they'll come back and their partner on Monday morning will say, I wish we had more time together. And the partner's thinking, well, but we just spent the whole weekend together. But they're like, no, because you were doing your work and by the beach and you were reading your book and I was trying to take care of the kids. And you realize it was never time. It was attention, it was intimacy, it was presence. And so if we don't define those words, all right, words are all about definitions. If you don't define them, people will break that contract and that emotional contract, and you have nothing to hold them to. All of us don't have a lot of time. And so one of the reasons we procrastinate is because we say, well, I don't have enough time to figure that out, so I'm just gonna put it off. I'll do it next week, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll think about it later, because we don't think we have the right amount of time. Here's what I've realized, and here's a hack that has helped me break through that idea. I've realized that when I'm present and focused, that's more powerful than any amount of time. When I'm alert, when I'm ready, even if I'm there for 15 or 20 minutes, I can actually make more progress than if I had an hour and I didn't bring my best energy. Ask yourself consistently, how can you bring your presence to the task, not your time? Don't let time be the limiting factor. When I'm having a productive, effective day, that doesn't mean I don't get distracted. I get distracted plenty of times. I have tons of notifications, social media, big announcements, things that are happening throughout the day, plus a team across the world in different time zones to manage. So when I get distracted, I've created a really healthy relationship with distraction. I feel like sometimes our relationship with distraction is quite negative. We see it as a bad thing. We judge ourselves for feeling distracted. We start saying, oh, I wish I was more focused, or I wish I was more effective. So I literally got one of these distraction timers, as I call it, and I turn it over as soon as I get distracted. I let the sand run out, and as soon as it runs out, I have to get back to my task. This gives me the space and the time to allow for little distractions. And now I've figured out a way to allow myself 5 minutes of distraction time every hour. So every hour I allow myself to browse on my phone for 2 to 5 minutes. And that way I know that that time is going to happen, that time is going to come. And that allows me to delay it, to put it off, and to postpone my own distractions. One of my favorite ways to deal with success is continue trying to be the least successful person in the room that you're in. I think there's those statements of like, never be
the dumbest person.
Yeah, never be the smartest person in the room, etc. And I think it's the same with, if you become successful, don't just stand at the top of the mountain, don't just stand at the top of the building, go back down the stairs and keep building and keep living as that person that got you there, because you only got there because you started from the bottom. Right, no one starts at the top, and so you started at the bottom and you built it up, and it was that mindset that you started with that got you there. And so you want to keep rediscovering that mindset and new parts of it, and new parts of that mindset too, where you're always trying to challenge yourself. And so for me, one of the best ways of dealing with success is keep expanding the goalposts, right? Keep widening the goalposts, keep making them harder to reach and challenging yourself, because when you challenge yourself and you push yourself out of your comfort zone, you're naturally humbled. Because you're naturally humbled when you're walking into spaces. I'm sure you feel this sometimes. Like, sometimes I walk into a room and I'm like, how did I even get here?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
sitting at a table, I'm like, why should I be here?
Yeah, like, and there's part of it that's imposter syndrome, and that can have its own negativity, but part of that just lets me feel like a beginner again.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that feeling, and I go, this is amazing, because learning to be grateful and stop just thinking that, oh, I earned all of this and I did it all myself and I'm self-made. You start recognizing gratitude for all the people that got you there. So for me in success, first thing is be grateful for all your teachers, mentors, guides, people that got you there. The second thing is always keep challenging yourself, because the more you're out of your comfort zone, the more naturally you stay humble. You don't stay humble by trying to be humble. You become humbled constantly by trying to do stuff that's out of your league, which constantly makes you prepare, work, deepen what you have.
Study, all that stuff.
All of that stuff that makes you go there again. And then the third thing you do with success is, I think you try and share it with others. You try and use your platforms as an opportunity to give other people a platform so that they can come up as well, because you're reminded of what a beautiful gift you have.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you are different. you are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video because you are awesome. To get some incredible motivation from Tony Robbins, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
Let's talk about what nobody wants to talk about. Who here has ever failed? Who's here has failed miserably at something you wanted to achieve? Say I. Who's done this more than once? Say I.